The tale unfolds in the Silver Dragon Dungeon, a prison guarded by two fearsome dragon sentinels. The Silver Dragon Queen, Roswies, arrives, ordering the guards to leave so she can confront the prisoner alone. Bound in chains before her is none other than Leon Cosmo, the legendary dragon-slaying hero. With a sly grin, Roswies taunts him, asking how it feels to be at the mercy of the dragon clan. Leon's response is curt. He wishes only to die. Amused, she steps closer, lifting his chin to examine his face. His defiance, coupled with his striking looks, intrigues her. She drags a sharp nail across his cheek, leaving a shallow cut. Leon turns his head away, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him falter. If she intended to kill him, he urged her to make it quick. Roswies, however, was not in a hurry. She licked the blood from his wound, proposing that he join the Silver Dragon clan. Leon mocked her suggestion, questioning if she was worthy of such an ally. Enraged by his insolence, she whipped him with her tail, slamming his body into the wall. With her foot pressed against his chest, she marveled at his audacity. This was no ordinary man. Leon Cosmo, once hailed as humanity's greatest hero, had been betrayed and left to languish in captivity. His dreams of eradicating the Dragon Clan and cementing a legacy were shattered. Roswies sneered, reminding him of his fall from grace. With no heir and no future, his name would fade into obscurity. Despite her taunts, Leon warned her not to underestimate humans. The Dragon Queen seized him by the neck. Tightening her grip, she reflected on how stubborn he was. Then, with a commanding tone, she asked if he was ready to beg for mercy. He revealed her first mistake, being alone with the strongest dragon slayer. Her second mistake, he explained with chilling clarity, was tasting his blood. Before she could react, Leon activated a forbidden technique, the blood curse. The curse struck instantly. Roswies recoiled, trembling as an uncontrollable desire overwhelmed her. She collapsed, her body betraying her. Leon watched coldly, declaring that she would live the rest of her life in torment. Unable to resist, Roswies lunged at him, their encounter turning bizarre and heated. Leon could no longer comprehend what was happening. The Dragon Queen, controlled by the curse, leaned in and kissed him. Leon's cheeks flushed red. Hours later, when the curse began to subside, Roswies regained her senses, horrified and furious. "What have you done to me?" she demanded. Leon explained the nature of the blood curse, a one-time forbidden spell that linked their souls. Upon his death, she would suffer endlessly. Roswies scoffed, asking why the curse had such an unexpected side effect. Leon admitted he hadn't anticipated this reaction, but it seemed the spell's power was far more complex than he had realized. Blushing with embarrassment, Roswies understood the grim implications. Dragons adhered to strict monogamy, and this bond would doom her future. She would never take another mate, bear offspring, or explain this disgrace to her clan. Ironically, Leon had achieved his revenge. She had mocked him for lacking a successor, yet now she faced the same fate. Enraged, she prepared to strike, but Leon stopped her, his voice steady. "You don't need to kill me. I'll die soon anyway." As his life faded, he made a final request, that she live in hatred and pain, bearing the weight of his curse. Moments later, Leon drew his last breath. Roswies stood frozen, grappling with the reality of his vengeance. This mere human had exacted his revenge in a way she could never have anticipated. Refusing to let his defiance be his final act, she marked his chest with the silver dragon emblem. Leon Cosmo's life had been extraordinary. At 5, he killed a vicious dog with his bare hands, earning the attention of a master dragon slayer who made him an apprentice. By 10, he entered the Imperial Dragon Slayer Academy, graduating 4 years later as its youngest and most esteemed student. At 15, he became a hero, slaying dragons and reclaiming territories for the Empire. His name inspired hope across the land until his capture 2 years ago. Now, Leon awoke with a scream, his hand instinctively clutching his chest. Gradually, Leon's breathing steadied as he calmed down. He looked around, finding himself in a strange room. Confused, he wondered where he was until the door suddenly opened. A small girl stepped inside, her innocence and beauty striking him. Blinking, he struggled to make sense of the situation. Rising from the bed, he gazed at her. She seemed so pure he thought she might be an angel. Surely he had died and ascended to heaven after his service to humanity. But he was wrong. "What's your name?" Leon asked, still in disbelief. The girl smiled sweetly. "Her name is Moon." Though her response made him feel oddly happy, something about her was strange. Her hair, a mix of black and white, was unlike anything he'd ever seen. She mentioned her mother had told her the name meant the moon, further confusing Leon. Did angels even have mothers? When he introduced himself, Muen beamed with excitement. Leon means lion, she exclaimed. Surprised, he asked how she knew that. She smiled again. That's what my mother told me. A growing unease gripped Leon. What's your mother's name? He asked cautiously. Rosweiss, Muen replied cheerfully. Leon froze. The name hit him like a thunderclap and he quickly pieced it together. Am I your father? Muen grinned. Yes. Panic surged through him. How could this be possible? How could he have a child with Rosweiss? Before he could process it, Muen turned to the door. Her mother stood there, sending chills down Leon's spine. Mama, Daddy's awake. Muen called out, running to her. Rosweiss's lips curled into a smile, not the one her daughter expected. While Muen believed her mother was happy because she visited him daily, Rosweiss wore a wicked grin as she stroked her daughter's head. Go outside and play, dear, Rosweiss said sweetly. Your father and I need to talk. Once Muen left, Leon stared at Rosweiss in disbelief. Is Muen really our daughter? Yes, she confirmed, closing the door behind her with her tail. She's our biological child? Leon's mind raced. Why did you have the child? Why did you save me? You've been asleep for 2 years, Rosweiss replied coldly. I haven't forgotten what you did to me and I'll never let it go. Anger flared in Leon's eyes. I never wanted this. We're different, we can't coexist. Rosweiss's expression darkened. Oh, it was torment for you, was it? Her tail wrapped around his leg, yanking him onto the bed. She climbed on top of him, tearing his shirt open as a cold gleam lit her eyes. Chanting a spell, she activated a mark to bind him to her forever. Leon begged her to stop, but she ignored him, pressing her hand to his chest. A glowing magic circle appeared, forever marking him with her dragon emblem. You'll never leave me, Rosweiss declared. From now on you're mine. Leon realized the mark would doom him. His comrades would see it as a sign of betrayal, believing he'd surrendered to the dragon clan. Dragon's vengeance was infamous, an obsessive, inhuman need for retribution. Rosweiss didn't just want him defeated. She wanted him humiliated, broken, and enslaved. As the spell completed, Leon felt an overwhelming desire he couldn't control. For Rosweiss it was a triumph. The greatest dragon slayer in human history was now her slave, her companion. Word spread quickly through the Silver Dragon Castle. The queen's husband had awakened. Even the maids noticed her unusually good mood. Hiding in a corner, Leon overheard whispers of his supposed new status and was horrified. Rosweiss had publicly declared him her husband. No one knew how terrifying she truly was. She had spent an entire day and night with him, leaving his body nearly broken. His waist felt shattered, but his spirit burned with fury. I won't stay here as her plaything, Leon vowed. Late at night, he slipped out of his room, heading for the castle's side door. 4 dragon guards stood watch, making escape seem impossible. The castle was oddly quiet, with far fewer guards than he remembered from 2 years ago. Something felt off. While searching for a way out, he stumbled upon a hidden hole in the grass. Faint light shone from the other side. Unsure if it was a trap, Leon didn't hesitate. He had to escape no matter what. Crawling through the narrow tunnel, he muttered a bitter farewell to the perverted dragon queen. As for little Muen, though she was adorable, she would have to stay behind, for now. On the balcony, Muen ran to her mother, eagerly announcing, "Father is digging a hole for the dog." The dragon queen, lounging in a bikini and sipping wine, chuckled at Leon's audacity. Muen tilted her head curiously. "When will you go and fish him back?" Rosweiss smirked and corrected her, "Not fish, darling. Say catch him back instead." Muen nodded, though a bit confused, and repeated, "Catch him back." As the night deepened, Leon finally escaped the castle and darted into the nearby forest. He was determined to climb the mountains ahead, where he hoped to see the border of human territory. Hours passed, and Leon felt certain the Dragon Queen wouldn't catch up. But his relief was short-lived. The sky darkened, and Rosweiss appeared above him in her true dragon form, wings spread wide as she praised his speed. "Impressive," she said, landing gracefully in front of him. Her smile was sharp, her tone teasing. "I distracted the guards and left that little escape route for you." Leon cursed silently, realizing her trap. Still, he bolted in defiance, though he knew returning to human territory now, with the Dragon Queen's mark on his chest, meant no one would believe he was still a dragon slayer. Rosweiss, clearly enjoying his defiance, swooped down and caught him effortlessly in her claws. Soaring high, she flew toward the human border, her grip unrelenting. After hours of flight, she dropped him near a border city, sending him crashing into the ground. Dazed and battered, Leon rose, spotting the distant lights of human settlements. Rosweiss, now in her human form, stood nearby and calmly confirmed, "Yes, we're in your empire." For most, such a sight would bring hope, but for Leon, it felt out of reach. Before he could react further, the mark on his chest began to glow, and an unbearable heat surged through him. Rosweiss smirked knowingly. I forgot to mention. When one bearer of the dragon mark desires intimacy, the other has no choice but to comply. The realization struck Leon like lightning. This was her final humiliation. Despite his efforts to resist, he was bound to her will. Grabbing her arm, Leon glared at her. "I'll repay every humiliation you've inflicted on me. Twice over." Amused, Rosweiss chuckled, her sharp gaze locking onto his. "I'll be waiting whether you return dead or alive." Hours later, beneath a tree near the border city, their twisted fate played out once more. The Dragon Queen seemed satisfied, but Leon was drained and quietly furious. Touching the mark on his chest, Rosweiss casually mused aloud, "Perhaps I'll bring you back here every month. It could be fun to visit your homeland." Leon gritted his teeth, his spirit unbroken. "I'm not your prey. I'll walk back with what little dignity I have left." Rosweiss raised an eyebrow. "Walk? It'll take you half a month to return on foot." "Don't underestimate human endurance," Leon snapped, determined to prove her wrong. Rosweiss smiled slyly, curious to see how long he could endure. She followed him silently, amused by his faltering steps. Hours later, Leon spotted knights patrolling nearby, Imperial Dragon Slayers. Hope surged through him. But Rosweiss's piercing glare warned him. If he called for help, she wouldn't hesitate to kill them. One knight approached. "Are you lost?" he asked politely. Leon forced a smile and lied, "No, just out for a walk." The knight dismounted, introducing himself as the captain of the 47th Squadron. "This area isn't safe for casual strolls," he said, gesturing to the dangerous wildlife in the jungle. He offered to escort them, leaving Leon caught in an impossible dilemma. Leon panicked as his hands trembled while he quickly thanked the captain for his kindness, insisting they had learned self-defense and could manage on their own. In truth, he wanted the captain to stay away. The captain's recognition of Leon's face put the Dragon Queen on high alert. Her eyes narrowed as she discreetly began channeling her power, ready to eliminate the captain if necessary. Realizing the situation was escalating, Leon acted swiftly. He grabbed the Dragon Queen's hand, pulling her close to his chest. With a nervous smile, he told the captain he'd been mistaken for someone else, joking that he had such an ordinary face. Even his wife, the Dragon Queen, occasionally mistook him. Leaning in, Leon whispered desperately, begging her to play along and promising to return with her if she helped him get rid of the knights. Amused, the Dragon Queen decided to indulge him. Together, they put on a convincing act, with Leon feigning affection as he held her close. The captain, clearly uncomfortable with the display, smiled awkwardly and excused himself, losing interest in their romantic moment. As soon as the knights left, Leon released the Dragon Queen, who looked visibly annoyed. Realizing his mistake, he quickly stepped back. "You were wise not to ask for help," she remarked coldly. "But let's be clear, just because we have a child doesn't make me your wife." Leon, catching his breath, replied, "I never wanted to be your husband." Satisfied with his answer, she smirked and turned to leave, reminding him of the long journey ahead. But before they could continue, Leon felt a sharp pain in his hand before collapsing unconscious. The Dragon Queen sighed, amused by his fragility. Transforming into her dragon form, she gently picked him up with her mouth and tossed him onto her back. Taking his collapse as a silent plea for mercy, she spread her wings and flew toward the Silver Dragon Castle, pleased with the turn of events. The next morning at the castle, Leon woke to find little Mune sitting beside his bed. Confused, he wondered how he'd returned. Mune cheerfully explained that her mother had brought him back. Realizing he'd been captured like prey, Leon glanced at his hand, now neatly bandaged with a bow tied around it. Mune proudly declared she had done the bandaging herself, clearly seeking his praise. Leon smiled and gently stroked her head. "You're amazing, Mune," he said warmly before teasing, "but don't grow up to be like your mother." From the doorway, the Dragon Queen's voice cut in. "And what's wrong with being like me?" Leon froze, startled. Nervously, he tried to change the subject as Mune excitedly showed her mother the bandaged hand, explaining she'd followed her instructions perfectly. The Dragon Queen gave no praise. "That's what you're supposed to do," she said coolly. Myun nodded, accustomed to her mother's stern demeanor. Trying to shift the atmosphere, Leon patted Myun's head again. "Why don't you go hide in the garden? I'll count to 100 and come find you." Myun's eyes lit up as she ran off eagerly. Once she was gone, Leon turned to the Dragon Queen. "Why are you so hard on her?" he asked. Sitting on the bed, she explained that dragons raised their children strictly to create strong warriors. Leon countered that Myun wasn't fully a dragon and besides she was very cute. The Dragon Queen scoffed. "Myun is a dragon and cute is an insult to our kind." Leon thought she was cute too, but his comment only fueled her anger. She grabbed his shirt, reminding him, "You're just a slave for me to vent my frustrations on. Don't overstep your place." Recognizing her position, Leon backed down. Her mood lightened slightly, and she entrusted him with caring for Myun. Leaning close, she whispered, "She likes you." Overwhelmed, Leon wandered to the fountain, lamenting his new responsibility of caring for a child, especially as a dragon slayer. Spotting Myun hiding behind a pillar, he declared, "I found you." But she didn't move. Confused, he apologized for making her wait, only for her to suddenly take off running. Leon chased after her, calling out, "Why are you running?" Myun dashed around a corner, leaving Leon momentarily disoriented as he lost sight of her. Predicting a child's mood was no easy task for him. It was becoming clear why the Dragon Queen had entrusted him with caring for the little one. Just as worry began to creep in, Myun suddenly appeared behind him, wrapping her arms around him in a hug. Startled, Leon recalled seeing her run past him earlier. However, Myun confidently denied it, explaining with a smile that since her dad hadn't found her, she had decided to look for him instead. Though puzzled, Leon concluded he must have been mistaken. Taking his hand, Myun insisted he follow her, promising to show him something special. As they moved, another girl eerily similar to Myun emerged from behind and silently observed them. Later that day, once the fountains were turned on, Myun gleefully painted on a canvas, thoroughly enjoying herself. Leon sat nearby, watching her with a warm smile, a surge of tenderness washing over him. For the first time, having a daughter felt good, like a soothing balm for his weary soul. While Myun played, Leon clenched his fists, teeth gritted in determination. He resolved to find a way to escape the Dragon Queen's grasp. Before he could act, Myun ran over, excitedly presenting a drawing. Leon took it with a cheerful smile, ready to offer praise, but his expression shifted to shock. The picture showed two girls. Thinking it was a simple mistake, he pointed at the second child and asked, "Why are there two of you?" With a tender smile, Myun replied, "That's my older sister." Panic set in as Leon processed her words. The girl he had glimpsed earlier wasn't a figment of his imagination. Regretting not addressing her earlier, Leon feared he might have upset her. Myun, however, reassured him that her sister wasn't angry, just a little shy about meeting their dad. Leaning his chin on his hand, Leon contemplated the situation. He had never met Myun's sister before, and it dawned on him how much the Dragon Queen had kept from him. Frustration bubbled up and he decided to confront her. In the Silver Dragon Castle library, the Dragon Queen was perusing letters when a tiny messenger dragon arrived with a note. The sound of hurried footsteps caught her attention, and moments later, Leon burst in, his frustration evident. He demanded answers, explaining how he'd learned about the older daughter while playing with Myun. The Dragon Queen, amused by his outburst, calmly asked what had unsettled him. Slamming his hand on the table, Leon declared his admiration for her dedication, acknowledging the effort it must have taken to raise two children. He even vowed to add her name to his family tree once he returned to the Empire. The Dragon Queen, smiling faintly, explained that she hadn't mentioned her eldest daughter because she didn't see it as relevant. Leon speculated that it might be because of jealousy over his bond with Myun, but the Dragon Queen seemed surprised at his eagerness to meet Noah. Deciding to humor him, she agreed to arrange a meeting but warned him to tread carefully. As night fell, Leon made his way to the kitchen, determined to win over his eldest daughter. He set about preparing a hearty meat stew with cream, a dish from his adventuring days, known for its sweet, comforting flavor. Tasting the rich broth, he clenched his fist with determination, imagining Noah smiling and declaring how much she loved her dad's cooking. Through the kitchen window, two maids watched him curiously. They found his efforts endearing, especially since he had recently recovered from illness. To them, Leon epitomized a caring father and devoted husband. Soon, the Dragon Queen entered the kitchen with Myun and another girl in tow. Myun greeted the maids enthusiastically, while Leon braced himself, spoon in hand, ready to face Noah. The Dragon Queen, seeking a more relaxed atmosphere for dinner, instructed the maids to take a break. Bowing respectfully, they replied, "Understood," before leaving the room. As Leon plated the meal, he carried the steaming stew to the table just as the Dragon Queen entered the dining area. Little Myun dashed toward him, drawn by the mouth-watering aroma. With a warm smile, Leon said, "I heard you both like meat, so I made a special stew and fillet just for you." He hoped this meal would express his affection, particularly to Noah. To his dismay, Noah barely glanced at the food, her attention wandering elsewhere. Leon froze in disbelief, confused by her indifference. The Dragon Queen, observing the scene, smiled knowingly. Frustration flared within Leon as he realized she had anticipated this reaction, which likely explained her hesitation in arranging this meeting. Breaking the silence, the Dragon Queen prompted Noah to introduce herself. Obediently, Noah said, "I am Noah, the eldest daughter of the Silver Dragon Queen Roseways." She added proudly, "I'm 1 year and 2 months old." Dragons, being a long-lived race, matured much faster than humans. Leon stepped forward, extending his hand in greeting. "I'm your dad," he said, striving to make a good impression. To his surprise, Noah seemed momentarily captivated by him, but her aloof demeanor lingered, unsettling him. He began to question whether she harbored resentment or doubts about him. Sensing the tension, Myun gently took Noah's arm and whispered, encouraging her to talk with their dad to ease the discomfort. Noah's response, however, cut deep. "He seems very weak," she said bluntly. "I'm not sure he's really our dad." Her words struck Leon like arrows, forcing him to confront the harsh reality of his new role. It was clear that this was the first significant challenge of his journey as Papa Leon. Leon wiped his face with a cloth, reflecting on the challenging situation. He couldn't shake the feeling that his daughter might be testing him intentionally. Despite the tension, he braced himself for what lay ahead. Noah firmly rejected something, her determined expression showing her unwavering resolve. Whatever it was, she stood her ground with conviction. The family gathered around the dining table in an elegant room, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken tension. Subtle glances were exchanged, and Myun quietly sought help with her eyes. The twins sat side by side, their resemblance clear but their contrasting personalities shining through. While Noah ate with focused attention, Myun kept the conversation alive. Leon looked warmly at Noah and asked, "Are you enjoying the meal?" His tone was gentle, filled with care and curiosity. Suddenly, Noah cried out, breaking the calm atmosphere. Leon, startled by the outburst, froze in shock. Rozwazek covered her mouth, clearly amused by the unfolding chaos. Myun, noticing her mother's laughter, curiously asked why she seemed so happy. Leon, catching the contagious joy, began to laugh along with the others. He expressed how being surrounded by family brought him happiness. Myun eagerly asked if their father would join them for dinner every day, her eyes sparkling with hope. However, Noah, wearing a serious expression, immediately rejected the idea. Puzzled, Myun asked why her sister was so against the idea of daily family dinners, struggling to understand. Their mother, calm and composed, shifted the conversation, questioning Noah's urgency to attend a prestigious academy for dragons. "Why the rush?" she asked. With confidence, Noah declared her desire to face and defeat even more dragon subordinates, her determination evident. Leon, wiping his face in disbelief, began to realize that his daughter might even aspire to surpass him one day. Gently, he cautioned her about the dangers of fighting powerful dragons at her young age. Annoyed, Noah crossed her arms and retorted, "I'm not a child," leaving Leon exasperated. Rozwazek supported Noah's eagerness, believing early preparation would help her face future challenges. Turning to Leon, she questioned if he had any specific reasons for opposing their daughter's ambitions, subtly challenging his hesitations. Leon sighed in frustration, realizing that pushing back would only strengthen Noah's resolve to prove herself. Resigned, he chose to stay silent, acknowledging the situation with visible reluctance. Rozwazek, smirking, warned Leon to tread carefully, reminding him how quickly decisions about their daughter's future could be made. Leon, visibly stressed, felt the weight of her words. Noah was informed that the academy's entrance exam would be in a month, and Leon was tasked with helping her prepare. Her enthusiastic agreement filled the room with renewed energy. As the dinner concluded, the family exchanged playful banter about how full they were, teasing each other lightheartedly. Rozwazek then called out in a serious tone, catching everyone's attention. Leon, gesturing to the uncleared table, suggested that a true family dinner should end with both husband and wife cleaning up together. Rozwazek, unfazed, replied that such tasks were best left to others, subtly dismissing his suggestion. Leon countered, hinting that a harmonious family image required genuine effort, not mere appearances. Muen, eager to help, declared her intention to join in, her excitement infectious. Leaving the dragon mama with no choice but to agree. While Moon's excitement overwhelms the room as she declares that wants to help. Suddenly, she finds herself being pulled away, leaving her confused as she struggles to keep up with her parents. Meanwhile, Rozwazek confronted Leon, questioning when he planned to lend a hand. Leon, crossing his arms, reminded her of something he had told her 2 years ago. Rozwazek, radiating power, firmly refused to deal with someone who had undergone rigorous training. Leon, standing confidently, demanded to know her intentions, his sharp tone hinting that he was no longer easily manipulated. Rozwazek launched a powerful strike, warning him not to think escape was an option. Leon caught her attack effortlessly, holding her in place. With a smirk, he asked, "Who said I was trying to escape?" Rozwazek groaned in pain, struggling against his strength, as Leon taunted her for her weakened state. Mockingly, he called her a fallen queen and explained how the dragon's mark had diminished her power. He revealed knowledge he had gained from her tribe's ancient texts, unsettling her. Noticing her shock, he smirked, taunting her thirst for control. Rozwazek, breathless and flushed, questioned whether Leon had ever truly been under her control, her emotions raw and unguarded. She demands her tail be released, clearly indicating she's being restrained. Leon, holding her tail firmly, speaks in a calm yet menacing tone, accusing her of disrespecting his dignity ever since he awakened. His smug expression contrasts with her shocked and vulnerable state as she glares at him angrily. Rozwazek responds fiercely, refusing to submit and calling him a bastard. Her emotions boiling over, she challenges his dominance, her glare filled with defiance. Meanwhile, two maids gossip in the hallway, curious if the queen and her family have finished their private time. Their curiosity hints at something unusual. Peeking into the kitchen, they are shocked to find it spotless, as if someone meticulously scrubbed every corner. The maids speculate if the prince is responsible for the surprising cleanliness. One, delighted, holds up a polished plate. Meanwhile, Leon stands silently, observing the situation with a calm, focused demeanor. Holding Rozwazek firmly, he mocks her fall from grace, warning her to stay quiet to avoid being discovered by the maids. Rozwazek's eyes blaze with anger and determination as the door shuts firmly, reflecting her inner struggle against the humiliating circumstances. Leon smirks, tightening his grip, mockingly calling her his wife as he suggests they get started. His expression shifts to a cold, determined gaze, asserting his control over the moment. Rozwazek's eyes reveal exhaustion and helplessness as she barely responds, seemingly resigned to her fate. 3 days later, the scene shifts to a bright, majestic castle under a clear blue sky. Two sisters stand by their father's bedside, worried as he hasn't woken up in days. One wonders if he might be dead, but the other reassures her to wait. Suddenly, Leon reacts as Noah kicks him in the face. Groaning, he questions if any child would treat their parent this way. Leon regains awareness to find Muen by his side, eagerly reacting to his movement. Muen joyfully announces his return to consciousness, while Noah watches nearby. Confused, Leon wonders when he fainted. Rozwazek calmly offers to help him recall, triggering a flashback of her striking him and rendering the dragon mark powerless. Leon reflects on her overwhelming power, realizing how easily she could have ended him. Recovering, Leon sits quietly, observing Rozwazek, who has turned her back to him. Despite her intimidating strength, he notes her beauty and recalls that she is a dragon over 200 years old. Muen, noticing her father's stillness, innocently speculates he's stunned by their mother's appearance. Rozwazek, caught off guard as something strikes a nearby surface, turns in surprise. Leon picks up a flower accessory from the floor and gently places it on Rozwazek, saying it suits her. Surprised, she questions his gesture. Leon chuckles, joking about combing his master's donkey as a child, claiming he has a knack for such things. Muen curiously asks what a donkey is, catching him off guard. Smiling, Leon explains that donkeys are smaller and more stubborn than dragons, mimicking their behavior to amuse her. Rozwazek, watching intently, notes the stubbornness she shares with donkeys. Suddenly, she strikes Leon, sending him reeling. Wincing, he reassures Muen he's fine when she expresses concern. Rozwazek assigns Leon the task of teaching the girls to write, leaving him stunned. Muen cheers at the news, while Noah confidently claims she already knows how. The sisters race to the study room, excitedly discussing their pens. Meanwhile, Rozwazek informs Leon of her sister's upcoming visit and instructs him to avoid meeting her. Leon, surprised, questions why he's being excluded. Rozwazek reminds him of his new role within the Silver Dragon clan and the 2 years he spent in a coma due to a mysterious illness. She emphasizes that he must maintain a fabricated identity if forced to meet her sister. Leon listens intently, processing the situation. With a serious expression, he acknowledges her instructions, addressing her respectfully as Your Majesty. After Rosways leaves, Leon ponders whether he will truly follow her orders. Standing alone, he begins plotting ways to embarrass her in front of her sister. The scene transitions to the children's study room in Silver Dragon Castle. Leon sits at a table, patiently teaching Noah and Myun to write their names. Demonstrating step by step, he provides examples and asks them to copy his writing. Myun appears excited, while Noah's expression is more serious. Studying his writing, Noah comments that it's not as good as their mother's, hinting at her high standards. Leon feels a twinge of frustration but doesn't respond. When he gets up to leave, Myun curiously asks where he's going. Leon explains he needs to deliver something to their mother, assuring them he'll check on their progress later. Noah doubts his seriousness, but Myun teases her sister for looking happy. Flustered, Noah denies it and insists they focus on practicing. The scene shifts to the grand gates of Silver Dragon Castle, where soldiers and nobles gather for a formal event. Isha Melkvi, the Red Dragon Queen, makes a striking entrance with her fiery red hair and regal attire. Rosways rushes to greet her sister warmly, their close bond evident in their reunion. Isha compliments Rosways on her vibrant appearance. Slightly flustered, Rosways modestly disagrees. Curious, Isha asks about Rosway's husband, having heard he's recently woken up. Disappointed by Rosway's explanation that he's unwell and unable to meet her, Isha teases her about her quick marriage and child, implying a strong connection between the couple. Defensive, Rosways denies any past or future attraction to Leon, dismissing the notion of a harmonious relationship. Isha smirks, amused by her sister's steadfast demeanor. Suggesting they chat in the garden, Rosways leads the way. Meanwhile, Leon observes the sisters from a distance using a telescope. Recognizing Isha, he watches intently, scheming ways to test the range of the dragon pattern's influence. In the garden, surrounded by blooming roses, the sisters discuss instability in the dragon clan, particularly the activity of the Red Flame Dragon King. Isha speculates that Constantine, long thought missing, may be leveraging the chaos to expand his territory. Rosways reacts with a sudden glow of energy, her body tense as she senses something unusual. Concerned, Isha asks what's wrong, but Rosways dismisses it with a smile, urging her to continue. Internally, however, Rosways curses Leon, muttering about the damn dragon slayer. Isha suggests strengthening border defenses and mentions sending Shin Long to maintain communication about new developments. She then remarks on how casually young dragons are using the dragon pattern, clearly amused. As Isha continues to speak, Roswais feels the dragon pattern growing stronger, wondering what might happen if this continues. Isha then turns her eyes to Roswais, asking what is going on and realizing she is blushing. Roswais answers that she forgot something important and will be back in a few moments. Curious, Isha asks if she needs help and angry, Roswais deny her a company. Isha, realizing what's happening, smiles while thinking about the couple's games. Back in the castle, Leon lounges in a chair, amused by his experiment with the dragon pattern. He wonders how long Rosways can endure its effects. Suddenly, the door bursts open and Rosways storms in, seething with anger. Grabbing Leon by the collar, she accuses him of activating the dragon pattern to humiliate her in front of her sister. Leon quickly adopts an innocent expression, looking at her with mock affection. "Is it wrong for me to want you?" he asks, his tone soft and pitiful. Rosways freezes, her face flushing a deep red at his unexpected words. Letting go of his collar, she covers her face with her hand to hide her embarrassment. Leon smirks inwardly, pleased that his act seems to have worked, even as he wonders if she now feels disgusted by him. Blushing deeply, Rosways turns away and accuses Leon of being shameless. She reminds him that he's merely a defeated prisoner and has no right to speak such nonsense. With a stern tone, she tells him to put away his dirty thoughts. Leon remains silent, offering only a calm smile, while Rosways, her face still flushed, glances back at him and thinks, "I came here to confront him, so why did his words catch me off guard?" Storming out with an angry blush, she warns him that he got lucky this time, but if he tries such antics again she won't let it slide. Leon, amused, watches her leave and inwardly chuckles, thinking how a single word managed to fluster her so much. Reflecting on the situation, he notes how powerful the dragon pattern truly is. Yet, as he dwells on her reactions, he feels his heart racing unexpectedly. Shaking his head, he mutters to himself, "Cosmode, wake up. Stop thinking nonsense. The kids are still waiting for me." But it's clear that the growing tension between him and Roseways is steering the story into new territory. Back in the study room, Noah practices her writing with serious focus, while Myun, slacking off, wonders aloud why their father hasn't returned yet. Later that evening at Silver Dragon Castle, Aisha bids farewell to Roseways, announcing that she's leaving. Roseways waves her off, urging her to travel safely. Aisha transforms into her red dragon form, playfully teasing her sister to let her meet Roseways' husband next time. Roseways agrees but quickly shifts the subject. As Aisha soars into the night sky with her knights, Roseways watches her departure with a pensive expression, thinking, "I expected trouble in this chapter, but this wasn't the chaos I had anticipated. What mischief lies ahead for this family?" Gritting her teeth with renewed determination, Roseways thinks, "Damn Dragon Slayer. He still hasn't learned his lesson." Somewhere else in the castle, Leon sneezes repeatedly, wondering if someone's talking about him. He returns to the study room reading a bedtime story to Noah and Myun. As the girls fall asleep, Leon quietly closes the book, tucks them in and whispers, "Don't catch a cold." He tiptoes out, carefully shutting the door. Suddenly, Roseways slams her hand against the door with a loud thud, startling him. Her serious expression catches him off guard as she demands, "Where are you planning to go?" Leon, awkwardly scratching his head, asks, "Is your sister gone?" Roseways smirks slyly, replying, "We still have things to settle tonight." Grabbing his collar, she drags him along, ignoring his protests. In the Silver Dragon Queen's bedroom, Leon places a tub of steaming water on the floor with a thud, asking, "The hot water's ready. What do you need it for?" Roseways stretches out her legs, looking at him with a commanding air. "I've been walking all day. Wash my feet," she orders. Leon stares at her, stunned. His disbelief turns to frustration as he sighs and removes her heels, thinking, "I'm a dragon slayer, and now I'm reduced to washing a dragon's feet." As he begins, he glances at her feet and wonders how many dragon slayers have been brought low by her. Roseways notices his lingering gaze and narrows her eyes. "What are you thinking?" she asks, her face tinged with suspicion and a faint blush. Before she can press further, Leon smirks mischievously and plunges her feet into the scalding water. "Get down here," he says half-jokingly. Roseways recoils instantly, yelling, "It's too hot, you idiot." She kicks him under the chin, sending him flying back. Leon hits the ground hard, coughing up blood. With an icy glare, Roseways steps on his chest, pinning him down. "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" she accuses, her tone cold. Leon, defiant even under her foot, grins arrogantly. "You're the one who demanded I wash your feet," he retorts. Roseways flushes with a mix of embarrassment and anger. "Seems you still haven't learned your place," she mutters, dragging her foot down his chest. Her voice drops to a teasing whisper, "I bet you never imagined you'd end up beneath a dragon." Pressing her foot firmly against him, she leans in, smirking. "I'm curious, how long can you endure this?" Leon, his face flushed, looks up at her with steely defiance. "I won't give in to a dragon's games," he thinks, steeling himself for whatever comes next. With a swift motion, Leon grabs her leg and stands up with a confident grin. "I've tried pig trotters, cow trotters, goat trotters, but dragon trotters? Now that's a first." Roseways' eyes widen in shock, her face turning crimson. "What are you doing?" she exclaims. Without hesitation, Leon playfully bites her leg. "Tonight's snack, raw dragon claws?" Roseways lets out an enraged scream, threatening to kill him. The next morning, Moon and Noah wake up. Moon is still half asleep, while Noah is already wide awake. When Roseways enters the room with her leg wrapped in bandages, Moon notices and asks, "Mom, why are you limping?" Roseways brushes it off. "It's nothing." Meanwhile, Leon walks in sporting a bandage on his cheek. Moon turns to him curiously, "Dad, why do you have bruises on your face?" Mirroring Roseways' posture, Leon crosses his arms and replies, "It's nothing." Moon places her hands on her hips, staring at them both with suspicion. Suddenly, an idea lights up her face. "You must have been playing a fun game without me," she exclaims, raising her hand excitedly. "I want to play too." Noah, observing her sister's enthusiasm, sighs quietly but says nothing. Later, Leon and Rosewise stroll through the gardens of Silver Dragon Castle. They walk side by side in awkward silence, each lost in thought. A maid nudges her companion and whispers, "Look. The queen and the prince are on a date." The blue-haired maid giggles, adding, "What a lovely couple. Though they do seem a bit distant." Leon glances at Rosewise, finding her behavior unusual. He recalls her suggestion earlier to take a walk together. Shocked, he had asked why he needed to. Rosewise had replied it was necessary to maintain the image of family harmony for appearances. Now, as they walk, Leon wonders what Rosewise might be planning. She's rarely this proactive, and it leaves him uneasy. Nearby, Moon and Noah hide behind a tree, spying on their parents. Moon mutters to herself, "Dad doesn't even know how to hold hands." Suddenly, determination flashes in her eyes. Clenching her tiny fist, she declares, "I'll help them." Noah, alarmed, tries to stop her. "Wait, Moon," she whispers urgently. But Moon is already running toward their parents. "Mom. Dad." Moon calls out as she approaches. Leon and Rosewise turn startled. Leon begins to ask why Moon followed them, but before he can finish, Moon grabs their hands and links them together. "You're supposed to hold hands when you walk," Moon says cheerfully. Spinning around, she runs off, saying she's going to play with her sister. Leon looks down at his hand in Rosewise, bewildered. Watching Moon leave, he wonders where she learned such things. Back at the tree, Noah pinches Moon's cheeks in frustration. "You didn't listen to me?" Moon, tearing up, promises to behave and asks her sister to let go. Leon and Rosewise continue their walk, still holding hands, their faces flushed. Breaking the silence, Leon looks away awkwardly. "This is unexpected. What should I do?" Rosewise, blushing, softly replies, "It's okay. Just hold my hand for now." As they stroll, Leon remarks, "You're unusually calm today. It's making me nervous." With a smirk, Rosewise teases, "It seems I've finally tamed you. Now you're the one feeling unsettled." From behind a tree, Moon and Noah observe their parents with curious eyes. Leon glances at Rosewise and reflects on how she usually maintains a dignified demeanor as queen. He never expected her to be so flustered by something as simple as holding hands. After a pause, Leon brings up a topic. "Have you noticed how Moon calls me Dad, but she calls you Mother? It feels formal." Rosewise looks away. "Is there really such a big difference between Mother and Mom?" Leon smiles warmly. "There is. Mom feels closer, more affectionate. Maybe it's worth trying." Rosewise hesitates but eventually nods, her expression softening. "All right. I'll think about it." Leon chuckles, expressing it's good. "I bet they'll feel closer to you that way." Rosewise's cheeks turn bright red, caught off guard by Leon's cheerful demeanor. She quickly composes herself, nodding. "I'll try it next time," she says. Leon, noticing her sudden enthusiasm, raises an eyebrow. "Why are you speeding up?" They continue walking in the garden when Rosewise unexpectedly asks, "Do you ever feel homesick?" Leon gives her a skeptical look. "Why bring that up? It's not like you're letting me go back anyway." Rosewise sighs. "I can't send you home, but there's something that might ease your homesickness a little." Intrigued but silent, Leon follows her as she leads him to the large warehouse doors of the castle. Stopping before them, he eyes the doors curiously. "What is this about?" Rosewise gestures to the doors. "It doesn't have an official name. Call it a warehouse, a utility room, or whatever you like." She unlocks the door with a key and guides him inside. As Leon looks around, his eyes widen. "A dragon's treasure trove," he mutters, picking up a bracelet. "If this were in the Empire, it'd easily be worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins." Rosewise explains, "That bracelet was a gift from my grandmother when I was a child. Besides spoils of war, this room holds items that are personally significant to me." Leon looks at her thoughtfully. "I've never heard you talk much about your family, except for your sister." Rosewise's voice softens. "I never met my parents. My sister and I were raised by our grandmother." Surprised, Leon shares, "That's similar to my story. I grew up in an orphanage, never knowing my parents until I was adopted by my master and his wife." He glances at her. "Why bring me here?" Rosewise walks over to a treasure chest and opens it. "I thought this might temporarily help you forget your troubles." Still confused, Leon waits as she lifts the lid. His eyes widen in shock. "The black gold armor?" Rosewise smirks. "Haven't you always wanted to reclaim it?" Leon stares at her in disbelief. "Am I dreaming? Are you really giving it back to me?" Her cunning smile deepens, her eyes glinting mischievously. Yes, she replies. As Leon reaches out to touch the chest plate, a blue light suddenly emanates from it. He freezes, stunned. It's enchanted, with a dragon mark. Internally he thinks, black gold armor, my loyal companion, how did you end up in her hands? Rosewise, still smirking, says slyly, you've finally fallen into my trap. Leon clenches his teeth, glaring at her furiously. It seems another fiery clash between Leon and Rosewise is about to unfold. Leon stood frozen, shocked and confused. What are you planning, Rosewise? He asked, his voice tense. Beneath his feet, a glowing dragon pattern began to emerge, a spell tied to his armor, ready to activate the moment he touched it. Rosewise, her tone brimming with confidence, smirked. I've added a dragon pattern to enhance your armor's properties. Leon's unease deepened. He stumbled, clutching his chest as if in pain, cursing her under his breath. Damn dragon woman! He berated himself for letting his guard down, his body trembling under the spell's effects. Rosewise laughed wickedly. The enhanced dragon pattern has doubled its power, she taunted, leaning close to him. Tell me, my dear dragon slayer, can you endure it? Leon, rendered helpless, murmured her name. Rosewise, before collapsing completely. Unable to move, frustration boiled within him. Damn it, my body won't listen. Rosewise approached, a sly smile playing on her lips. Did you think I'd let go of my grudge so easily after what you did? She asked, her tone both mocking and seductive. She confessed she'd been waiting for this opportunity to take revenge, her determination growing stronger over the past few days. I didn't think it'd be so easy to fool you, she added with a chuckle, watching as Leon silently cursed her. Finally, unable to hold back, Rosewise leaned closer, teasing him with her words and actions. Was my performance convincing? She asked, a playful glint in her eyes. Leon's anger surged. Was everything you said and did up until now a lie? He demanded. Her smile softened. No, she admitted. I haven't lied. My feelings are real. Her voice grew warm as she confessed her affection for him. Removing the barriers between them, Rosewise laughed softly. I guess I like being conquered by you, she declared, addressing him as her husband with finality. Leon lay there, his body exhausted, feeling like a bedridden patient. Yet, amidst the chaos, their feelings finally emerged, transforming the intense moment into one of mutual understanding. Hours later, Leon sighed, relief washing over him. As he looked up, he noticed Rosewise watching him with a content expression. What are you staring at? He snapped, annoyed. Rosewise leaned in, whispering in his ear. Your scars have faded a little, but you look more weathered by life now, a mature man. Unmoved, Leon retorted, you're just trying to trick me again. I'm not falling for it. Rosewise chuckled. You've gotten smarter, Leon. Suspicious, Leon waited as she hesitated mid-sentence, blushing slightly before laughing. Your health isn't what it used to be, she teased. Leon's face went pale, her words cutting deep. His mind raced with wild implications. Asterisk, am I weaker? Less capable? Asterisk, his imagination spiraled until he let out a frustrated scream. The next morning at Silver Dragon Castle, Leon entered a room looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. I'm here, he announced. Rosewise, standing with her arms crossed, greeted him. Good morning. Didn't sleep well? Gritting his teeth, Leon glared at her. Because of what you said. Laughing, Rosewise feigned innocence. I don't remember saying anything. From the sidelines, Noah watched the banter unfold, shaking his head. Here they go again. Changing the subject, Rosewise reminded Leon about the strict entrance exam for St. Heath Academy. You should start tutoring Noah on dragon knowledge today, she said, leaning in to whisper. For now, prove your value in other areas. Fueled by anger, Leon shot back. I just wasn't in top shape yesterday. Pointing at her, he declared, I'll make sure Noah passes the test. But I want something of equal value in return. Rosewise smirked. Agreed. But don't ask for too much. A promise is a promise, Leon replied firmly. With a laugh, Rosewise walked away. Then study hard, she called over her shoulder, leaving Leon brimming with determination. With a mocking tone, Rosewise called Leon dear and warned him not to overexert himself. Fueled by anger, Leon shouted after her, that dragon woman is done for. Rosewise waved dismissively as she walked away. Noah, observing the interaction, asked Leon why he always quarreled with her mom. Folding his arms, Leon denied it, claiming it was just their usual way of communicating. Then, surprised, he asked Noah what she had just called Rosewise. "Mom," Noah replied. Taken aback, Leon stepped closer and asked if she had been told to change what she called her. He then inquired whether she preferred the old name or the current one. Noah, looking away with a slight blush, admitted she liked the current one. Leon beamed at her, saying he had a feeling they'd come to love it. Surprised by her father's cheerful demeanor, Noah remained silent, simply observing him. As she turned to leave, she asked when they could start studying. Caught off guard, Leon called out to her, telling her to wait. In the heart of Silver Dragon Castle, the night stretched on in eerie silence. But in the children's study room, a lone light flickered. Leon sat hunched over his desk, his eyes locked on ancient Dragon Clan tomes, deeply engrossed in thought. The rest of the castle had long succumbed to sleep, including the children. Yet, amidst the quiet, Roseweiss entered the room. Spotting Leon still buried in his books, she raised an eyebrow. "You're still awake?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and pride. Leon didn't look up, tapping his temple with a pen as if piecing together a complex puzzle. Noah's quick to grasp concepts, he muttered, half to himself and half to Roseweiss. Typical teaching methods won't cut it for her. I need to design an entire curriculum. Key concepts, test questions. Looks like I'm pulling an all-nighter. Rosweiss's lips curled into a proud smile as she glanced at their sleeping daughter. Lifting her chin with an almost regal air, she said, "Naturally. After all, Noah takes after me." Leon smirked, finally meeting her gaze. "Does she though?" he challenged, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Standing tall, Leon stretched dramatically, crossing his arms with exaggerated flair. "I was the top dragon-slaying genius every year, you know. Top of my class, undefeated in field training, awarded every scholarship. The school ran out of ways to praise me," he declared, tossing her a smirk as if daring her to top his claim. Leaning forward with playful taunt, he added, "So, Your Majesty, what were your accomplishments?" For once, Roseweiss faltered. Her dragon-slaying record and military prowess were unmatched, but academics? She hesitated, realizing she might have underestimated Leon's intellect. With a disdainful smirk, she countered, "So powerful, yet still my captive, aren't you?" Leon's face darkened. "Damn it, I only lost once," he retorted, his pride visibly stung. A dragon slayer of his caliber, defeated by none other than the Silver Dragon Queen herself. Now he was stuck, a tiger in the plains, constantly at her mercy. Slumping back in his chair, Leon muttered bitterly, "One mistake and now I'm trapped. A tiger bullied by a dragon." Roseweiss, smiling smugly, leaned closer. Her voice dripped with sarcasm as she asked, "Afraid of being ridden by a dragon, are you?" Her gaze shifted, landing on a pile of bright yellow peppers. Arching an eyebrow, she asked, "What are you doing with these?" Leon blinked as if noticing them for the first time. "Those? Brought them from the kitchen to help me stay awake." Rosweiss's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "Those are Dragon Clan yellow peppers. You're human, you can't." But it was too late. Leon had already popped one into his mouth, chewing confidently, for about 2 seconds. His face turned crimson, his eyes bulged and he gasped, "So spicy." He darted around the room, patting his face and frantically searching for water. Roseweiss, torn between concern and amusement, shook her head. Stepping forward, she caught his face in her cool hands. Their eyes met and both froze. Leon's cheeks blazed, though perhaps not entirely from the pepper. Roseweiss quickly looked away, clearing her throat. "My hands are cool," she said casually, though her voice betrayed her composure. "It might help." As her fingers rested on his flushed cheeks, Leon's panic melted into an unexpected calm. Her touch was soothing, calming the fiery sting of the pepper in a way that was gentle, not jarring. Leon closed his eyes, letting the coolness of her fingertips ease the burn, which slowly began to fade. Despite himself, he felt an unexpected sense of comfort in the simple gesture. "Thank you," he murmured, reluctantly pulling away, though the warmth on his cheeks lingered, now mixed with an undeniable blush. Ross dropped her hands and stepped back, her expression unreadable as she turned to leave. "Get some rest and don't eat the peppers again," she said, her sarcasm slipping in as she moved toward the door. Leon nodded, muttering a half-hearted, yeah, got it," though his gaze lingered on her retreating figure. When she was gone, he groaned, fanning his flushed face. The memory of her touch seemed almost hotter than the pepper itself. Yet, reality quickly intruded as he recalled her usual treatment. Crossing his arms, he muttered to himself, "Squeezes you dry and then blames your lack of endurance when you can barely stand." Scowling, he shook his head. "You can't go soft on her or you'll end up bedridden." Determined, Leon grabbed a book and began flipping through its pages, his eyes lighting up as he stumbled across something promising. Black Dragon Pill, he read aloud, excitement bubbling in his voice. A highly effective body-strengthening elixir that nourishes and stabilizes the core. Jackpot? A grin spread across his face as he studied the entry like it was a treasure map. With renewed resolve, he began making plans to improve his resilience. The next morning, sunlight poured through the windows, and outside, a small yellow bird chirped animatedly to a larger white one perched nearby. Inside, however, the atmosphere was far from cheerful. Leon sat across from his daughter, Noah, holding back a grin as he reviewed her test. "I just finished grading your test," he said, trying to keep a straight face. "Out of a possible 100 points, want to guess what you got?" Noah fixed him with her usual deadpan stare, her expression unreadable. 50? Leon snorted, pulling the test paper out with dramatic flair. "A whole 62 actually. You underestimated yourself?" Noah's eyes narrowed as she scanned the paper, her small hands tightening slightly around it. Her furrowed brows revealed her displeasure with the score. Leon softened as he watched her, noticing her serious demeanor. She was mature beyond her years, reminding him more of Ross than her younger sister Moon, who was likely outside chasing butterflies or counting clouds. Reaching out, Leon ruffled Noah's hair gently. "For a first try, 62 is pretty impressive, kid." Noah glanced up at him, her cheeks faintly coloring at the rare compliment. "Thanks," she mumbled, a touch of pride creeping into her usually stoic tone. Just as Leon leaned in to encourage her further, a sudden coughing fit overtook him. Turning away, he rubbed his throat with a wince. "Sorry about that," he croaked, his voice rasping. His throat burned, a sharp reminder of the yellow dragon clan peppers he'd foolishly eaten the night before. "Why did I think wake-up peppers were a good idea?" he thought, grimacing. Noah's expression shifted as though something had clicked. She rummaged in her pocket and produced a small tin, holding it out to him. "Dragon throat lozenges," it read in elegant script. Leon blinked in surprise. "Is this for me?" Noah's face remained stoic, but a flicker of embarrassment crossed her eyes. "Mom said to give it to you," she said, her tone slightly cooler, as though distancing herself from the gesture. Leon grinned, popping a lozenge into his mouth. The soothing mint immediately eased the irritation in his throat. "Well, tell your mom thanks for me," he said, giving Noah a knowing look. Like mother, like daughter, he mused. Cold on the outside, but with small gestures of warmth when no one's watching. As the lozenge melted away, Leon felt his energy return. Turning back to Noah, he said, "Now, where were we?" Noah's gaze sharpened, her serious side returning. "You said we'd go over the questions I got wrong?" Leon chuckled, pride welling up as he saw her determination. "Right you are, Noah." In the kitchen of the Silver Dragon Castle, Leon engages in an enigmatic task. Maids, responding to his precise instructions, deliver the requested items with seamless efficiency. One addresses him as Lord Prince, informing him that all the herbs have been delivered. With a nod, Leon directs them to place everything in a specific spot on the table. They comply, arranging the ingredients as instructed before quietly leaving the room. Leon, with a subtle, knowing smile, reflects on his strategy of ordering extra herbs to keep his intentions concealed. He examines the herbs closely, identifying them as the components needed to prepare the Dragon Great Force, a seemingly straightforward concoction, yet one fraught with challenges. The ancient manual he references warns that even the most skilled Dragon Clan pharmacists achieve low success rates with this process. Undeterred, Leon begins his work. He recites the steps from memory, meticulously grinding and mixing the herbs before adding them to a pot in a precise sequence. Hours pass as he labors with unwavering focus, but frustration builds when his efforts end in failure once again. With a loud, anguished scream, Leon laments the ruined concoction, staring at the charred remnants. He mutters about the difficulty of achieving the final purification and separation step, despite following the manual's instructions perfectly. Leon reflects on the delicate balance required in the high-temperature separation method described in the book. A temperature too high destroys the drug, while one too low renders purification impossible. Frustration mounting, he shakes the jar of remnants, grumbling about the near impossibility of achieving precision without professional tools. However, recalling his master's advice to seek alternative approaches, he begins considering new methods to separate the medicinal residue. As thunder roars outside, Leon notices the turbulent sky and remarks on the impending rain, the storm reflecting the brewing determination within him. As Leon rises to close the windows, The rumble of thunder captivates him, stirring a distant memory. The sound draws his thoughts to the interplay of lightning and thunder, triggering a revelation. His teacher's words from an alchemy lesson resurface. Electrolysis of impurities could sometimes yield better results than fire-based methods. Inspired, Leon's eyes light up with newfound determination as he wonders if the thunder element could be harnessed for separation, a method absent from the ancient manual. Leon's mind races with possibilities. Lightning magic, his specialty, may hold the key to refining the dragon great force. Though his powers are still recovering from the forbidden technique he used on Rosweiss, he believes the magic he has regained will be sufficient for this delicate process. Setting aside the traditional methods, Leon channels a steady flow of lightning energy, guiding it carefully into the mixture. Sparks dance in the air as he manipulates the process with absolute precision. After half an hour of meticulous effort, Leon steps back and takes in the result. A triumphant smile spreads across his face. It worked. He succeeded in refining the dragon great force. As the storm outside continues to rage, Leon savors the quiet victory within the castle kitchen. Placing the medicine in a small box, he remarks to himself how surprisingly simple the Dragon Clan's medicine is to create. Just then Muon, his cheerful daughter, bursts into the kitchen, her curious eyes immediately spotting the small chocolate-like object in Leon's hand. Tilting her head, she asks with innocent curiosity, "Dad, what are you making?" Leon glances at her, momentarily startled. Casually he replies, "It's something good." But as her sweet voice fully registers, he pauses, staring at her in silent thought. Muon, undeterred by his vague answer, looks up at him expectantly, her enthusiasm unshaken. Realizing her presence, Leon snaps out of his reverie. "Muon," he exclaims, surprised. Quickly closing the box, he pats her head with a reassuring smile. "It's nothing really," he says. But Muon's curiosity doesn't waver. "Is it candy?" she asks, her eyes flicking to the box in his hand, her excitement growing. Leon chuckles softly, shaking his head at Muon's curiosity. Holding up the closed box, he explains with a warm smile, "It's not candy, it's medicine. Something I made for your mom." Muon's cheerful demeanor shifts to concern as her brows knit. "Medicine? Is Mom sick?" she asks, her voice laced with worry. Leon kneels to her level, gently patting her head. No, he reassures her, his tone soothing. "Your mom has just been very busy lately, so I thought I'd make something to help nourish her. Don't worry, okay?" While Muon seems reassured, Leon smirks inwardly at his own misdirection, thinking to himself, "Actually, this is for me. I'll need it to recover properly." Muon, still earnest, gazes at him and declares, "Dad, you have to take good care of Mom, okay?" Leon's smile softens as he responds warmly, "Of course. That's what a dad should do." Yet beneath his calm exterior, his thoughts take a mischievous turn. Concealing a darker expression, he muses, "Once I'm fully recovered, I'll definitely take very good care of her," letting out a quiet chuckle. Later that stormy night, with heavy rain and rolling thunder echoing outside, Leon sits in his bedroom, absently tossing the medicine box in his hand. Despite his success in refining the dragon great force, doubts linger in his mind. He wonders if the Dragon Clan's nutritional supplements might have unforeseen effects on humans. Catching the box mid-air, he frowns and mutters to himself that it's best to set it aside for now. Suddenly, Ross Weiss appears, her expression one of surprise mixed with incredulity. She seems skeptical that Leon could produce medicine in such a basic environment. With her usual air of superiority, she extends her hand, demanding in a commanding tone, "What did you refine? Let me see it." Leon hesitates, gripping the box tightly. Meeting her gaze, he sighs, finally handing it over. "Even if I refused, you'd just resort to violence and take it anyway," he mutters, exasperation evident in his voice. Ross Weiss takes the box and examines its contents closely. A faint smile graces her lips as she observes the dragon great force. "Impressive," she remarks. "You've managed to refine a perfect dragon great force under these conditions. Truly remarkable, Leon." "What's that saying? The man of letters and the man of arms?" Leon blinks in surprise, marveling internally at her reaction. She didn't mock me this time? With a sharp click, Ross Weiss closes the box and hands it back to him. "You can keep this," she states firmly, "but you can't take it." Confused, Leon catches the box, his brows furrowing. "Why not?" he asks, his tone puzzled. Ross Weiss locks eyes with Leon, her expression firm and unwavering. She explains that the medicine designed for the dragon race is far too potent for a human body to endure. Leon's frown deepens, his dark expression mirroring his rising skepticism. Is it really that powerful? He questions, his tone laced with doubt. But her serious demeanor doesn't falter. Yes, it is, she responds. As a human, you cannot withstand its effects. Her voice softens slightly, almost as if trying to dissuade him. Yet Leon's pride surges. With a defiant smirk, he pulls the dragon great force from the box. I've defeated countless dragon kings without the power of a dragon, he boasts arrogantly. Why would I fear a single pill? Alarm flashes in Ross Weiss's eyes as Leon swallows the pill without hesitation. Leon, she shouts, her voice filled with concern, but he only grins defiantly. Courage is the hymn of mankind, he declares boldly. The pill's effects strike instantly. A torrent of power floods Leon's body, overwhelming him. His heightened senses teeter on the brink of chaos as agony overtakes him. Collapsing to his knees, he clutches his chest, his face contorted in pain. You reckless fool! Ross Weiss yells, her anger mixing with worry. Do you know how rarely I use healing magic? Without hesitation, she rushes to his side, attempting to cast a spell to stabilize him. Let me try to break down the pill's effects, she urges urgently. But Leon, fueled by sheer determination, shakes his head. His darkened gaze meets hers as he grabs her hand, halting her mid-spell. Leon, don't move, she pleads, her voice rising in alarm, but her words are drowned out. A violent storm erupts from Leon's body, thunder booming and lightning crackling wildly. The raw energy engulfs him entirely, illuminating the room in bursts of searing light. Despite the agony ripping through him, Leon's voice cuts through the chaos, steady and resolute. Ross Weiss, he growls, his eyes burning with unyielding determination. Look carefully. His gaze locks with hers, his resolve unshaken. This is the courage and determination of mankind. Ross Weiss protests, but it's too late. Leon endures the excruciating effects of the dragon great force alone. Lightning dances around his body, the storm intensifying as thunder roars. His screams echo through the small space, a testament to the unbearable pain. Pushed away earlier, Ross Weiss can do nothing but watch, horror and awe warring in her mind. As she stares, realization dawns. Leon isn't just enduring, he's using his lightning magic on himself. Her disbelief grows as she tries to comprehend his reckless yet brilliant strategy. Minutes stretch into what feels like an eternity. Finally, Leon stops channeling his lightning magic. The raging storm begins to subside, leaving the room eerily quiet. His body still crackles faintly with residual energy, his figure illuminated by the dying sparks. Ross Weiss stands frozen, her eyes wide as she watches him. Leon has survived, his indomitable spirit etched in every labored breath. Leon's body gives in to the overwhelming strain, and he collapses to the ground. Leon? Ross Weiss cries out, rushing to catch him before he falls. Her voice is laced with genuine concern as she gently eases him into a lying position. With a careful hand, she brushes stray strands of hair from his face, her expression a mix of exasperation and worry. Gazing down at his unconscious form, she mutters softly, "You really are a madman." Despite her irritated words, a subtle tenderness underlies her tone. Standing, she casts one last glance at him before turning sharply. "Wait here," she says firmly, "I'll get the court physician." But before she can take another step, a faint, hoarse voice stops her in her tracks. "Ross Weiss," Leon calls out weakly, his voice barely audible. She spins around, shock etched across her face. His eyes flutter open, flushed red and glassy, a dazed and unusual expression overtaking his features. Before she can ask how he's feeling, Leon's hand reaches out toward her. Startled, Ross Weiss instinctively freezes. Suddenly, his hand grabs her tail. "What?" she gasps, her eyes wide with disbelief. She's caught completely off guard as Leon, smiling with an almost goofy, childlike grin, holds her tail tightly. "How on earth are you even awake?" she demands, her voice a mixture of confusion and embarrassment. Leon, ignoring her protests, clumsily sits up, his movements unsteady but determined. A deep blush spreads across his face as he presses his cheek against her tail, a soft giggle escaping his lips. "My wife," he murmurs affectionately, his voice hazy with delirium. "Where are you going?" Ross Weiss' face flushes crimson. "Who do you think you're calling your wife?" she stammers, struggling to maintain her composure. She tugs at her tail in an attempt to free herself. "Let go of my tail, you idiot," she demands, her voice trembling with frustration. But Leon tightens his grip, refusing to let go. His smile widens as he rubs his cheek against her tail again, sighing contentedly. I don't want to, he says softly. I won't let go. I won't let my wife go. Despite her growing irritation, Ross Weiss realizes she can't overpower him in his current state. Leon clings to her tail with childlike delight, humming a whimsical wife tune as he continues to nuzzle her tail. Exasperation floods Ross Weiss' face as she lets out a long sigh, finally ceasing her futile attempts to break free. Her patience thins and she silently admits defeat. Turning her gaze away, she begins analyzing the situation to regain her composure. The dragon great force enhances physical strength and endurance, she thinks, trying to rationalize his bizarre behavior. Meanwhile, Leon continues his antics, utterly oblivious to the chaos he's causing, his grin as wide as ever. The effects of the medicine puzzle Ross Weiss. It shouldn't cause unconsciousness or such bizarre behavior, she thinks, her mind drifting to Leon's earlier use of lightning magic. Could his manipulation of the lightning element have interfered with or amplified the medicine's effects? These thoughts race through her mind until her gaze returns to Leon, who is still humming cheerfully with his face pressed against her tail. Her cheeks flush as she takes in the absurd sight. Idiot, she mutters under her breath, tinged with embarrassment. Despite his strange antics, Ross Weiss reassures herself that he's not in any immediate danger. Leon, oblivious to her flustered state, continues his marrying wife tune. She exhales deeply, realizing there's no reasoning with him in this state. Resigning herself, she looks down at him and says, All right, I'm here. What's wrong? Just tell me already. Leon pauses, his humming stopping abruptly, and looks up at her with a flushed face and childlike excitement in his eyes. Boldly he calls her wife again, his expression mischievous. Then without hesitation he declares with a grin, I want a second child. Ross Weiss freezes, her face flushing a deep red. His sudden declaration leaves her speechless for a moment, a chill running down her spine as she struggles to maintain her composure. Her glare intensifies as her blush deepens. You haven't even properly taken care of the 2 children from my first pregnancy, she snaps, crossing her arms. And now you're already asking for another one? Forget it. But Leon remains undeterred, his grip on her tail firm as he rolls on the bed with exaggerated whines. I want a second child, he insists, his tone almost pleading. Come on, Ross Weiss, is it really such a bad idea? Frustration bubbling, Ross Weiss pinches the bridge of her nose. What did I do to deserve this? She wonders silently, weighing her options. Realizing reasoning with him might make things worse, she exhales and mutters, Fine. Not just a second child. We'll have a third and a fourth too if it'll shut you up. Leon's eyes light up like a child promised his favorite treat. With a triumphant grin he exclaims, Really? Then you have to come back to my hometown with me. Yeah, Ross Weiss replies, waving him off with a tired look. We'll go back once everything is settled here. Finally releasing her tail, Leon leaps to his feet, cheering loudly. That's amazing. You're the best, Ross Weiss. Watching him, Ross Weiss shakes her head, caught between exasperation and amusement. He's even more irritating than usual today, she thinks, though a faint smile creeps onto her face. Suddenly Leon leans in close, his grin widening. My wife is the best, he declares boldly. Before Ross Weiss can react, he moves forward, clearly intending to plant a kiss on her cheek. Caught off guard, Ross Weiss's eyes widen in shock. Reacting instinctively, she presses her hand firmly against Leon's face, pushing him away with decisive force. No taking advantage of the situation, she thinks, trying to maintain control despite the absurdity of it all. Internally, Ross Weiss struggles to make sense of Leon's bizarre behavior, her thoughts racing as she anxiously wonders how long the effects of the dragon force will persist. But as Leon stubbornly continues his antics, her patience snaps. With a swift punch to his face she calls him an idiot, the blow landing squarely. Leon lets out a small yelp, stumbling from the impact. Ross Weiss crosses her arms, glaring at him with frustration that barely masks her internal guilt for losing control. Leon, clutching his chest with exaggerated dramatics, groans in mock agony, only for Ross Weiss's irritation to shift quickly to panic. She rushes to his side, kneeling down, her voice laced with concern. Are you okay, you fool? She asks, her gaze scanning him for any serious injury. Leon's breathing grows heavy, his teeth gritted as he clutches his chest tighter. Wife, he groans weakly, I feel really uncomfortable. Suddenly, a bright light emanates from the dragon mark on Ross Weiss's chest, catching her completely off guard. Her eyes widen in alarm as she mutters, This isn't good, her heart racing with apprehension. Without hesitation she unbuttons Leon's shirt to inspect him. The moment the fabric parts, the dragon mark on his chest begins to glow with an intense, otherworldly light. Ross Weiss's brow furrows in confusion and rising dread. Why is the dragon pattern activating now of all times? She wonders, her mind scrambling for an explanation. Before she can piece it together, Leon's hands suddenly grip her shoulders with surprising strength, startling her. In one swift motion he pushes her onto the bed, pinning her down. "Leon?" Ross Weiss shouts, a mix of anger and alarm in her voice. "You bastard! What are you doing?" Leon's breath is ragged, his flushed face drenched in sweat as though burning with fever. His desperate gaze locks onto hers. "Wife," he whispers hoarsely, I feel so hot all over. My chest, it itches." Ross Weiss's cheeks burn crimson at their close proximity, her heart pounding uncontrollably as she glares at him. Grinding her teeth, her mind works frantically. The dragon pattern combined with the lightning element, it's heightened his instincts, she realizes with dread. It's fueling his desire to reproduce. Before she can react, Leon's gaze shifts and his eyes land on her tail. Without warning he grabs it, pulling it closer. Ross Weiss freezes, completely stunned as Leon leans in and sniffs it, his expression dreamy and dazed. "Leon," she snaps, her voice trembling with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. "Let go of my tail right now." But Leon only tightens his grip, his face blissful as he mutters, "It smells so nice, so soft, wife." Ross Weiss's composure starts to unravel, her expression torn between fury and disbelief. If this keeps up, I might actually lose control, she thinks nervously. Determined to put an end to his antics, she presses her hand against his face again, this time with more force, trying to push him away. "Leon, stop it," she commands, her tone firm and sharp. Her patience wears thin, but her resolve to contain the situation remains unyielding. Ross Weiss's tail drags along the ground throughout the day, a fact she brings up with a sharp question. "Doesn't that disgust you?" But Leon remains unyielding, his stubborn nature refusing to relent. Despite her efforts to push him away, his hands cling tightly to her. As she continues scolding him, Leon suddenly places a finger gently on her lips, cutting her off mid-sentence. Startled, Ross Weiss freezes, her breath catching in her throat. Her eyes widen as she stares at him, uncertain and uncharacteristically speechless. Leon's gaze deepens, his expression carrying an intensity she's never seen before. "Malif," he says softly, addressing her by her first name, a rare and startling gesture. "You're so beautiful tonight." The unexpected compliment sends a wave of heat rushing to Ross Weiss's face, her cheeks glowing crimson. She turns her head away to escape his piercing gaze, her voice faltering as she stammers, "Even if you say that, I'm still mad at you." Her mind races. What's going on? She wonders, her heart pounding wildly. This man, his demeanor is completely different. There's something wild and intense about him tonight, something I can't seem to reject. Despite her internal protests, Ross Weiss feels her resolve beginning to falter. She sneaks a quick glance at him and finds his fiery gaze still locked onto her. A faint, unbidden sense of anticipation flickers within her. Sensing her hesitation, Leon leans closer, his voice dropping to a low, persuasive whisper. "Wife, can you help me please?" Ross Weiss bites her lip, torn between frustration and the turmoil of her emotions. Finally, with her face still flushed, she mutters, "Fine, but just tonight." Triumph flashes in Leon's eyes as he pulls her into his arms. The night stretches on, filled with an undeniable intensity that lingers even as dawn breaks. The next morning, in the grand chambers of the Silver Dragon Castle, Leon stirs awake, the effects of the dragon force finally fading. As his vision clears, he spots Ross Weiss lying beside him, her smirk both teasing and confident. "Awake, are we?" she asks in a playful tone, her piercing gaze fixed on him. Hearing her voice so close, Leon jolts upright, panic flashing in his eyes. "Ross Weiss," he exclaims. "Why are you in my bed?" His abrupt movement sends a wave of pain through his body, causing him to wince as he clutches his aching muscles. "Everything hurts," he groans, rubbing his temples. "My memory is fragmented. What the hell happened last night?" Ross Weiss stretches languidly before slipping out of bed, her smirk growing wider. She turns to face him with an air of feigned innocence. "You don't remember anything?" she asks lightly, though the glint in her eyes betrays her amusement. Pointing to the faint bruises and marks on her arms and neck, she tilts her head slightly. "Dragon Slayer," she says, her tone dripping with irony, "surely you didn't forget, right?" Leon's eyes widen further as he notices the marks on her skin. His shock deepens, leaving him struggling to piece together the chaotic fragments of the previous night. Leon's mind spirals as he spots the numerous marks on his body, his thoughts racing. A cold sweat beads on his forehead. Nikki's? So many, the realization hits him like a thunderbolt. Did I really do that? Suddenly, fragmented memories from the previous night begin to surface, each one more vivid than the last. Clutching his head, he watches as the scattered pieces fall into place. The full picture forms, and with it, a horrified scream escapes his lips. Ross Weiss, leaning casually against the bed frame, folds her arms and smirks. So, you do remember, she teases, her tone laced with amusement. You begged me last night, Leon. Said things like, Connie, just one more time, okay? Wife, I feel so bad. Please help me just this once and the last time, asterisk. Leon's face turns crimson as she mimics his desperate tone. Stop it, he yells, covering his ears in a futile attempt to drown out her words. I remember everything. There's no need to repeat it. Ross Weiss's smirk only grows wider as she watches him squirm, clearly savoring his discomfort. Meanwhile, Leon hurriedly pulls on his shirt, sneaking a side glance at her. His internal monologue is filled with regret. All I wanted was to refine the dragon force for my health, maybe teach her a small lesson. How did it turn into this? As Ross Weiss finishes dressing, Leon lets out a heavy sigh, his gaze briefly meeting hers. Maybe I went a little too far last night? He mutters under his breath. Hesitantly he asks, did I hurt you? Ross Weiss shakes her head, her demeanor calm. It's fine, she replies, dismissing his concern effortlessly. Leon, folding his arms and trying to regain his composure, adopts a smug expression. Well, now you should know whether I'm in good health or not. Next time, don't go doubting my abilities. Ross Weiss's eyes narrow sharply, her gaze piercing through him. Her sudden seriousness makes Leon shift uncomfortably. What's with that look? He stammers, taking a cautious step back. Without warning, Ross Weiss closes the gap between them, her expression unwavering. Before Leon can react, she grabs his chin, leaning in close. Her commanding tone is firm and unapologetic. Dragon Slayer, I must say, I'm very satisfied with your performance last night. I hope you can keep it up in the future. Leon freezes, his face burning red as her words sink in. Internally, his thoughts erupt. What is happening? Have I somehow become her personal servant now? Ross Weiss steps back, her usual smirk returning as though nothing had happened. Casually, she changes the subject. Now, about that bet, she says, her tone light. The mention of the bet jolts Leon from his daze. His eyes narrow with suspicion as he studies her carefully. The bet? He echoes, attempting to mask his nervousness. A faint blush colors Ross Weiss's cheeks as she glances away, the brief display of vulnerability catching Leon slightly off guard. Ross Weiss reminded Leon of the moment he had insisted that the children call her Mom, claiming it would deepen their affection for her. She acknowledged, with a soft chuckle, that he had won that argument. Leon raised an eyebrow, a flicker of pride lighting up his face, though he remained silent. Her tone softened as she addressed him. So, have you thought about the request you'd like to make? She asked, curious. Leon hesitated, scratching the back of his head, before responding with an unusual sincerity. Actually, I have. I'd like you to send someone to the Empire to check on my master and his wife. I need to know if they're doing okay. Ross Weiss's playful demeanor faded as she considered his request thoughtfully. Silver dragons aren't exactly known for stealth, but visiting someone isn't an issue, she replied calmly. Leon's face lit up with joy. You're really okay with it? He asked, his enthusiasm momentarily breaking through his composure. Catching himself, he straightened up, cleared his throat, and shifted to a formal tone. Thank you for your help, he added sincerely. Later, in the Silver Dragon Castle's garden, Leon sat on a bench, his pale and weary face betraying his fatigue. Little Muin approached him, her wide, curious eyes fixed on him. Dad, are you sick? She asked innocently, her voice filled with concern. Leon jolted at her question, his nervousness making him wave his hands in denial. What? No, of course not. Why would you say that? He blurted out. Muin giggled, her sweet laughter carrying through the garden. Mom told me, she said confidently. She said you took medicine yesterday. And she said men can never admit when they're sick. Hearing her words, Leon's face darkened. Gritting his teeth, he fumed internally. That meddling female dragon, how could she say that to a child? Do I even have any dignity left? Muin tilted her head, her expression turning to genuine concern. But you still don't look well, Dad. Is it because the medicine didn't work? Or maybe you didn't take enough of it? Leon let out a sigh, crouching down to meet her gaze. Placing his hands gently on her small shoulders, he said, Muin, it's rude to ask too many questions. Before he could steer the conversation away, Muin gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Dad, your mouth is bleeding, she cried. Clinging to him tightly, tears welled up in her eyes as she pleaded, Dad, I can't live without you. Please don't die. Leon's heart softened at her words. Smiling warmly, he patted her head gently. Daddy's really fine, Muin. I promise I'm doing just fine. He reassured her with a soothing tone, easing her fears. As Leon looks into Muin's bright, innocent eyes, he can't help but notice how much she resembles her mother, Ross Weiss. Her cheeky persistence, sharp wit, and lively expressions mirror her mother's traits perfectly. But this time, Leon decides he needs to stay ahead of her cleverness. No mercy. Kneeling down, he asks her with a playful tone, How about Daddy makes you a new toy today? The mention of a toy immediately fills Muin with excitement. Her eyes sparkle as she jumps up and down, clapping her hands. Yes, I love toys the most, Daddy, she exclaims, her enthusiasm infectious. Leon smiles at her joy and promises, All right then, I'll make you something special. After some thought, he decides to craft a Rubik's Cube, a toy from his own childhood. Determined, he sits down and begins working, using his alchemical skills and mechanical knowledge to carefully design the cube. Each face is painted with vibrant, cheerful colors, and once the paint dries, he proudly holds up his creation. Presenting it to Muin, he explains, This is called a Rubik's Cube. You can twist it however you like. Want to give it a try? Muin's wide-eyed amazement is immediate. She eagerly takes the cube, examining it closely before twisting its sides. As she figures out its mechanics, her delighted smile warms Leon's heart. Watching her, Leon muses to himself, Who knew those alchemy mechanics lessons would be useful for babysitting? Maybe I was born to be a babysitter after all. But as the thought amuses him, a sudden unease creeps in. His smile fades and his expression grows serious. Turning sharply, he scans his surroundings, his senses on high alert. Muin notices his sudden shift and tilts her head curiously. Daddy, what's wrong? She asks, still clutching the Rubik's Cube. Leon hesitates for a moment before smiling to reassure her. It's nothing, sweetheart. Just thought I saw something, he replies calmly. Yet deep down he knows it's more than that. Moments ago, he felt a faint but unmistakable sensation, the presence of the dragon's gaze. His instincts tell him the sensation is coming from the direction of Noah's training grounds. He wonders if Noah, with her stubborn and independent nature, will ever decide to join them. As the thought lingers, he resolves to extend a gesture of connection by making a Rubik's Cube for her as well. Later that night, as the Silver Dragon Castle falls silent and Muin sleeps soundly in her room, Noah returns to her own quarters with her usual composed demeanor. Her sharp gaze immediately lands on the Rubik's Cube placed on her desk, accompanied by a handwritten note from Leon. Noah picks up the note with mild curiosity, reading its contents in Leon's familiar handwriting. This is a toy for you, Noah. Your task is to figure out how to solve it. Think of it as a little challenge. Scoffing, she mutters to herself, What an idiot. I don't have time for children's toys. Yet, despite her dismissive words, her fingers instinctively twist the sides of the Rubik's Cube, her movements precise and controlled. As she continues, a faint blush rises on her cheeks. Clutching the cube tightly, she whispers softly, Thank you, Dad. To her, the toy isn't just a puzzle, it's a rare and treasured gesture of affection from her father, something deeply meaningful. Carefully, Noah tucks the Rubik's Cube into a small wooden box hidden beneath her bed, a personal collection she fondly calls her treasure box. Inside are fragments of their father's black and gold armor, a nameplate engraved with Noah Kane Melkfi in Leon's hand, and now the cube itself. Unbeknownst to Noah, her younger sister, Mon, has been quietly observing from the doorway. Intrigued, Mon muses to herself, Sister's been acting strange lately. Always hiding things in that box. What could it be? Later, as Noah steps out of the room, Mon seizes her chance. Crawling under the bed with a mischievous grin, she whispers, Detective Mon is on the case. With great excitement, she retrieves the wooden box and opens it. Her eyes widen in surprise as she examines its contents. The armor fragments, the Rubik's Cube, the engraved nameplate. They're all connected to Dad, she says aloud, her face lighting up in understanding. So that's why she's been so secretive. Without a word, she ties Mon up, silences her with a cloth and reclaims her treasure box. Leaning down to the struggling Mon, Noah smirks and says, "No peeking. Got it?" Meanwhile, far from this sibling clash at St. Heath Academy, an elite institution of the Dragon Clan, the standards for student admission remain uncompromising. The academy not only evaluates individual potential but also prioritizes family harmony and adherence to dragon ideals. Believing that only a loving and harmonious family can raise a dragon to embody proper virtues, St. Heath only admits students from such backgrounds. To maintain the perfect image of a united dragon family, the Silver Dragon Queen Rosweiss devises a plan. A family outing to Sky City, complete with a picture-perfect family photo. Sky City, the vibrant heart of the dragon realm, buzzes with life as parent dragons playfully interact with their young. Against the lively backdrop, Rosweiss arrives in her majestic dragon form. Her family follows, captivated by her regal presence. Descending gracefully, Rosweiss lands and her youngest daughter, Muin, full of playful energy, gleefully slides down her mother's back. Below, Leon stands ready, his arms outstretched. "Slow down, Muin. I'll catch you," he calls out. With perfect timing, he catches her mid-slide, holding her securely. "Gotcha," he says warmly, lifting her effortlessly into the air. Nearby, Noah watches the scene in silence, her arms crossed and her expression calm, observing the familial exchange with her characteristic composure. Rosweiss, now back on the ground, transforms smoothly into her human form, her movements poised and dignified. Curious as ever, Muin looks up at her father. "Daddy, why didn't you turn into a dragon just now? I really want to see you as a dragon." The unexpected question catches Leon off guard. His confident smile falters as he laughs nervously, scratching the back of his head. Panic rises within him. "Dear daughter, Daddy's great at slaying dragons but turning into one? You'd better forget about it," he thinks to himself. Before he can offer a response, Noah's sharp gaze fixes on him. Her voice cold and cutting, she asks, "So, is it that you can't transform? Or you won't?" Her words hit their mark, leaving Leon visibly uneasy. He looks between Noah and Rosweiss, searching for support but finds none. Sensing the tension, Rosweiss intervenes with a reassuring smile. "Your father's body hasn't fully recovered yet, so he can't transform into a dragon for the time being," she explains calmly. She then promises the children that once Leon is better, he'll show them his transformation. Muin's expression turns serious as she looks up at Leon with concern. "Daddy, you have to get better soon," she says earnestly. Leon pats her head, smiling warmly. "I'll do my best, Muin," he replies, though inwardly, his thoughts are far less optimistic. Rosweiss redirects the moment. "All right everyone, let's head into town. We have things to do today." Bursting with excitement, Muin dashes ahead, her eyes wide with wonder. "Noah, look. There are so many dragons here," she exclaims joyfully. Noah, maintaining her steady composure, follows behind at a measured pace. "Slow down, Muin. Don't run off too fast," she cautions. As the two sisters move through the bustling streets, their presence draws the attention of the dragon citizens. Many pause, their gazes filled with curiosity and admiration as they take in the siblings, marveling at their striking presence amid the lively crowd. Rosweiss and Leon walk behind their daughters as the lively streets of Sky City hum with activity. Leon's expression darkens and his body trembles faintly. Though silent, his unease does not escape Rosweiss's sharp perception. She notices his trembling and thinks, is he shaking? She quickly pieces it together. It must be his first time seeing so many dragons since awakening from his coma. Leaning in with a teasing smirk, she whispers, "Are you scared, Leon?" At first, Leon remains silent, his face still clouded, but suddenly his demeanor shifts. His eyes flash with arrogance and he retorts, "Who's scared? You must be joking." Puffing out his chest dramatically, he points at the dragon citizens around them. "I'm excited, Rosweiss. Can't you tell?" he declares with exaggerated confidence. "Do you know what I see? First-class merits, second-class merits, third-class merits, merits everywhere. The streets are practically paved with gold. I'm going to get rich." Completely unfazed by their reactions, he whistles casually and strides forward with a self-satisfied grin. Rosweiss pinches the bridge of her nose, exhaling in exasperation. "I worried about him for no reason." Again, she thinks. Later, the family arrives at a specific shop in the bustling town. As the door creaks open, the dragon shopkeepers immediately bow deeply, their voices filled with reverence. "Your Majesty, the Silver Dragon Queen and her family, it is our great honor to serve you." Rosweiss enters with her usual grace, followed by Leon and the children. Inside, Muen dashes around excitedly, her curiosity boundless. She grabs Noah's hand and tugs her toward the walls, pointing eagerly. "Noah, look. So many dragon pictures," she exclaims, her eyes sparkling with wonder. Noah, ever stoic, remains silent, her expression unchanged despite her sister's enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Leon sidles up to Rosweiss, his curiosity piqued. In a low voice he asks, "Aren't you the Silver Dragon Queen? Why are you coming here to take photos yourself? Shouldn't someone else handle this?" Rosweiss glances at him sideways, clearly unimpressed. "The Dragon King of a tribe can only command members of their own tribe," she explains calmly. "The dragons of Sky City, however, do not belong to any specific tribe. They're independent." Leon smirks, clearly enjoying himself. "So basically your queenly status doesn't hold much weight here, huh?" he quips, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Before he can revel in his teasing for long, Rosweiss stomps on his foot with her sharp high heels. A sharp jolt of pain shoots through Leon as he winces, but Rosweiss remains composed, brushing off his antics as if nothing had happened. Leon yelps in pain, hopping on one foot as he clutches his throbbing toes. Rosweiss, donning a sweet yet dangerously mischievous smile, quips, "Well, in any case, I'm taller than you now." Her remark elicits a nervous chuckle from the head shopkeeper, who steps forward and bows deeply. "It's truly an honor to have the Silver Dragon Queen and her family here," the shopkeeper says with reverence. "To take a family photo for Her Majesty is a privilege beyond compare." Rosweiss straightens her posture, flipping her hair with a confident flourish. "Everyone says my photography skills are top-notch among the dragon tribe," she boasts. "It's your great fortune that we managed to schedule this appointment." As they converse, the head shopkeeper glances cautiously toward Leon and asks, "What about Her Majesty's husband's tail? Should it be included in the photo?" Rosweiss waves the question aside with a nonchalant gesture. "He's not fond of showing his tail," she explains with a shrug. "Let's pick a tailless suit for him instead." Her words spark a vivid memory, and a sly smile tugs at her lips as she recalls the earlier incident at the Silver Dragon Castle. Before departing for Sky City, Rosweiss had presented Leon with a custom-made silver dragon tail decoration, urging him to wear it. Leon's reaction had been immediate and dramatic. "Absolutely not," he had exclaimed, retreating several steps as if the tail ornament were cursed. "I'll never wear that thing. Even if I die, it's about my dignity." Back in the shop, Rosweiss shakes her head at the memory, clearly amused by Leon's stubbornness. The head shopkeeper, oblivious to the backstory, nods respectfully and gestures for Rosweiss to move to another area to try on her outfits. Meanwhile, across the shop, Muen skips around with infectious energy, her excitement lighting up the room. "I want to wear a pretty dress," she chirps, her voice filled with cheer. After some time, Muen and Noah emerge from the changing room in their new dresses, both looking radiant and ready for the family photo. Their elegance draws admiring glances from the shopkeepers and other customers. Shortly after, Leon steps out, dressed in a crisp white suit. His polished appearance is a stark departure from his usual casual style, leaving an impression on everyone present. Muen's eyes widen in delight as she takes in her father's new look. "Dad, you look so handsome," she exclaims, her voice brimming with admiration and surprise. The head shopkeeper nods approvingly, her smile warm and genuine. "The suit fits the prince perfectly," she remarks. "I imagine he must have been quite popular in his youth." Leon arches an eyebrow, clearly enjoying the compliment. A smirk spreads across his face as he responds, "You really think so?" His tone carries a playful confidence, momentarily basking in the praise. The last time Leon had worn something this formal was at his school graduation. His thoughts drifted as he adjusted his suit until his gaze fell on Noah. "What do you think, Noah?" he asked suddenly, catching her off guard. Noah blinked, momentarily surprised, then glanced away, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "You look quite handsome," she muttered softly. Leon's grin widened at her response, and he affectionately patted both Muen and Noah on their heads. "And your dresses are adorable too," he added warmly, drawing smiles from both girls. Just then, Rosweiss stepped out of the dressing room, her appearance stealing the attention of everyone in the room. Draped in an elegant gown that perfectly accentuated her poise, she was breathtaking. A stunned silence followed, with Leon's jaw slightly dropping as he stared in awe. Rosweiss was undeniably stunning. Noticing Leon's dumbfounded expression, Rosweiss smirked, tilting her head playfully. "What's wrong, Leon?" she asked, her voice teasing. Snapping out of his trance, Leon quickly looked away, scratching the back of his head in awkward embarrassment. "Nothing, it's just, that dress suits you," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. Rosweiss's cheeks flushed faintly at the unexpected compliment, but she quickly masked it with a casual tone. "Well," she replied, "I think it would look even better if you had a tail." Leon's expression darkened instantly, and inwardly he screamed, "I will never wear a tail, not in this lifetime." Before the tension could linger, the head shopkeeper intervened with a cheerful tone. "All right everyone, let's get ready for the family photo," she announced, positioning the camera. Muen, filled with excitement, waved her little hands eagerly. "Mom, Dad, come here," she called, tugging Noah into position. Rosweiss and Leon hesitated as they took their places, each stubbornly avoiding the other's gaze. "Your Majesty, Prince Leon, step a little closer please," the shopkeeper encouraged. "Let's capture the love and harmony of this beautiful family." "One smile," the shopkeeper announced, starting the countdown. Muen beamed brightly, her cheerful energy lighting up the scene. Noah maintained her usual stoic demeanor, while Leon and Rosweiss looked as though they were barely tolerating the moment. For the final shot, the shopkeeper suggested something unique, Rosweiss and Leon forming a heart-shaped symbol together. Rosweiss skillfully coiled her tail into the shape of half a heart, while Leon begrudgingly completed the other half with his hand. The resulting photo was a mix of charm and awkwardness, highlighted by Rosweiss's playful smirk and Leon's reluctant expression. Despite his initial resistance, even Leon had to admit the photos turned out well, though he silently resolved never to mention the heart symbol again. In another shot, Rosweiss and Leon faced each other, their gazes locked in a fiery stare. Though their flushed faces hinted at embarrassment, the intensity of their rivalry was undeniable. Observing the dynamic, the head shopkeeper chuckled and remarked, "You two really look like a couple. This photo is definitely one for the books, a special edition if you will." Speaking of memorable moments, Leon's graduation ceremony came to mind. On that day, a throng of female juniors had surrounded him, each vying for his attention. One timidly asked, "Senior Leon, can we take a photo together?" Another inquired, "Will you have dinner with us later?" A third, presenting a carefully wrapped gift, pleaded, "Please accept this, Senior Leon." Caught off guard by their overwhelming attention, Leon had looked visibly flustered, his expression torn between hesitation and mild panic. Struggling to navigate the situation, he finally composed himself, donned a stern expression, and declared, "I'm sorry but I can't. I have to head back and nail hooves for my master's donkey. Maybe next time." His abrupt excuse left the girls stunned. Their hopeful smiles quickly faded as disappointment washed over them, and one by one they retreated, hearts visibly broken. Leon sighed in relief, waving them off with a cheerful goodbye, though the air still carried the weight of their crushed spirits. From a distance, Leon's master had observed the scene, shaking his head with a long, exasperated sigh. "Did this guy get kicked in the head by a donkey? What is wrong with him?" he muttered to himself. Back in Sky City, after the photo shoot, the head shopkeeper informed them that the photos would take approximately 6 hours to develop. She suggested Her Majesty take a leisurely stroll through the city in the meantime. As they exited the shop, Muen cheerfully waved goodbye to the shopkeeper. Noah and Leon exchanged a glance, a silent yet telling moment, as if they both suspected something unusual. Suddenly, Muen grabbed Noah's hand and darted into the bustling streets, her excitement bubbling over as she urged him to look over there. Leon and Rosweiss followed at a more measured pace, their children's boundless energy far surpassing their own. As they walked, Leon glanced at Rosweiss, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I never thought I'd get the chance to go shopping with you." Leon steps slow as he remarks how different this all feels. Rosweiss, ever composed, replies in her calm tone, reminding him that this is merely for maintaining their family image. Yet, her demeanor softens as she adds, "Besides, Noah has been preparing so diligently for her entrance exam. She's worked hard for almost a month. It's good for her to relax occasionally." As their conversation continues, Muen and Noah suddenly halt in front of a bustling stall featuring a balloon shooting game. Their eyes immediately fixate on a cute teddy bear displayed among the prizes. Muen's excitement shines through her starry-eyed gaze, while Noah appears equally captivated by the fluffy toy. Leon and Rosweiss catch up, pausing in surprise as they find the girls completely engrossed. Noah steps forward with quiet determination, picking up the toy gun. She takes aim carefully, her focus intense, but her efforts fall short. Either her shots miss the balloons entirely, or they strike ones that refuse to pop. A tense silence follows, and Noah's face twists into a pout of frustration, the expression unintentionally adorable. Myun's enthusiasm dims, her disappointment mirroring Noah's. The shopkeeper, noticing their downcast expressions, offers a warm smile. A few more tries and I'm sure you'll get it. Leon steps forward, shaking his head with a chuckle. So, they've got games like this here too, huh? Myun's face lights up as she exclaims, Dad? Meanwhile, Noah, still pouting, mutters about how she just can't seem to win. Leon laughs awkwardly, suspecting that the game might be rigged. But before he can voice his doubts, Noah shoves the toy gun into his hands, her pout now almost commanding. Taking the gun, Leon examines it thoughtfully, recalling similar games he had encountered in human markets. Ross Weiss watches him intently, commenting, the bullets for this toy are crafted from magical energy. It takes precise control to manage the magic effectively. No wonder it's challenging for Noah. Sensing an opportunity, the shopkeeper smiles slyly at the parents. Would you two like to give it a try? If you can hit all the balloons within 10 shots, you'll win the pair of teddy bears your daughter seems so fond of. Internally, the shopkeeper smirks, proud of his strategy. Letting the children struggle first was a calculated move to draw their parents into spending more money. Leon glances at Myun and Noah, his voice gentle. Do you want the teddy bears? Noah huffs, crossing her arms and looking away. I'm not interested, she declares, though her tone betrays her real feelings. Beside her, Myun lowers her shoulders, her voice soft and wistful. Myun doesn't want them either. Despite their attempts to mask their desires, the longing in their eyes is unmistakable. Leon couldn't be fooled. Though Myun and Noah insisted otherwise, he knew they both wanted the teddy bears but were too proud to admit it. With a mischievous grin, he turned to Ross Weiss and, pointing at her, confidently declared to the shopkeeper, Give me 10 shots. She'll pay for it. Ross Weiss gasped in surprise, caught completely off guard. The shopkeeper, amused by their dynamic, chuckled and rubbed his hands together. That's the spirit. Leon picked up the gun, his expression shifting to one of intense focus. Memories of his training days at the Dragon Slayer Academy flashed through his mind. It had been a while since he'd held a weapon, and a twinge of nostalgia accompanied the familiar feeling. Meanwhile, Ross Weiss begrudgingly handed over the gold, the shopkeeper accepting it with a cheerful, thanks. Taking aim, Leon fired his first shot. Mississippi. Another shot. Miss again. Shot after shot yielded the same result, not a single balloon popped. The shopkeeper smirked, pride swelling as he watched Leon fail. He had tampered with the gun to make the game almost impossible, confident that no one could win. Leon, however, wasn't ready to concede. Tapping the gun lightly, he frowned, murmuring, What's going on? Inspecting the weapon carefully, he slid his left hand casually into his pocket, took a deep breath and steadied his aim. This time, his movements were precise, calculated, and smooth. One by one, the balloons burst with every shot. The shopkeeper's smug expression evaporated as disbelief overtook him. Leon spun the gun in his hand and smirked. Guess I just needed to test the sights first. Didn't expect to hit them all after that, he remarked coolly. The shopkeeper stood frozen, his mind racing as he struggled to comprehend what had just happened. Meanwhile, Ross Weiss offered a soft smile and said, Not bad. Myun, cheeks flushed with admiration, clutched her teddy bear tightly and exclaimed, Dad is amazing. Noah, equally surprised and blushing faintly, added, Dad is so sharp. Defeated, the shopkeeper forced a smile and handed over the teddy bears. That's awesome, he said, his tone anything but sincere. Internally, he muttered, Just take them and leave already. Leon accepted the prizes graciously, his warm smile contrasting the shopkeeper's reluctant expression. Thank you, he said, his voice genuine as he turned back to his family, the girls glowing with happiness. Leon knelt before his daughters, handing a teddy bear to each of them with a gentle smile. These are for you, he said softly. Myun's face lit up with joy as she hugged her bear tightly, looking up at him with pure happiness. Thank you, Dad, she exclaimed. Noah, meanwhile, cradled her bear delicately, inspecting it as though it were a precious treasure. In a quiet voice, she murmured, Thanks, Dad. Ross Weiss stood to the side, observing the tender moment. A flicker of surprise crossed her expression as she took in the rare harmony and affection between them. Watching Leon, a thought crept into her mind. Though this guy often seems offbeat, there's a certain charm about him when he gets serious. Leon, catching her gaze, held his attention on her, noticing the contemplative look on her face. Something about it stirred a decision in him. Ross Weiss, sensing his stare, glanced back at him, puzzled by his lingering expression. His lips curled into a faint smile, and without any explanation he remarked, "Oh, I have some thoughts about Rosweiss too. Let's see where they lead." Later, the family continued their stroll through the bustling streets. As they walked, a little dragon girl pointed toward Rosweiss, tugging on her mother's sleeve. "I want that too," the girl said. Startled, the mother glanced at Rosweiss with a hint of surprise but chose to stay silent. Meanwhile, Leon recalled an earlier idea. He had decided that Rosweiss, his big baby girl, deserved a teddy bear of her own. True to his plan, he managed to procure a large, oversized bear and handed it to her. Rosweiss accepted the bear, holding it as she walked alongside the family. Her expression remained calm and unreadable, showing no reaction to the little dragon girl's remark. After all, the comment had been directed at the girl's mother, not her. Leon strolled leisurely, his hands clasped behind his head, breaking the silence with a chuckle. "Did you see the look on that shopkeeper's face at the end?" he asked. "It was like he finally got rid of us and his anger all at once." He recalled the moment vividly, how the shopkeeper's face had turned pale when Leon demanded another shot, the man's disbelief growing as he realized Leon's inevitable victory. Rosweiss responded in her usual composed tone. "If it had been me," she remarked coolly, "I'd have advised you not to waste your time on such a childish game." Leon turned to her with a grin. "Come on," he said. "We're out here together. It's good to have a little fun." Tilting his head, he asked playfully, "Unless you didn't enjoy it?" Without changing her expression, Rosweiss replied curtly, "I didn't say that." Pointing a finger at her confidently, Leon declared, "Now that you're here, I can't let you go back empty-handed." Rosweiss, clutching the oversized teddy bear, felt a faint blush spread across her cheeks as a fleeting thought passed through her mind. Bears, in her view, were nothing more than unpalatable creatures, far from satisfying any appetite. Yet, when turned into toys, they held an unexpected charm. Without waiting for a response from Leon, she quickened her pace, walking ahead with her cheeks still tinted pink. Tossing a playful remark over her shoulder, she said, "Come find me after dinner tonight," her voice tinged with mischief. Leon froze mid-step, her words echoing in his ears. He stood rooted in place, wide-eyed, a wave of surprise washing over him. A moment later, he remained there, unmoving, a silent question lingering in his mind as if suspended in the air around him. That evening, within the grand halls of the Silver Dragon Castle, Leon found himself replaying Rosweiss's cryptic invitation in his mind. As he wandered down a dimly lit corridor after dinner, her words, "Come find me after dinner," repeated themselves like a mantra. His chest tightened with a mix of anticipation and unease. "It's late and I'm heading to her room alone," he muttered, his voice low. The thought unsettled him. "If I go, I'll feel awkward all night. If I don't, I'll be restless for a week." With a frustrated sigh, Leon clenched his fists, steeling his resolve. "Fine. I'll go see her. Whatever happens, happens." Determined, he strode down the hallway. Reaching Rosweiss's door, Leon stopped and inhaled deeply, readying himself to knock. Yet, as his hand neared the wood, he noticed the door was slightly ajar. Curiosity got the better of him, and he gently pushed it open, stepping into her room. His eyes swept over the space, searching for her. The sound of running water reached his ears and realization dawned. She was still in the shower. Leon's gaze drifted toward the bathroom, where the faint silhouette of Rosweiss was visible through the frosted glass shower door. Frowning, he noted the transparency of the glass. "What kind of cheap glass is this?" he thought, quickly averting his eyes in embarrassment. His mind raced, struggling to process the situation. As seconds turned to minutes, his internal turmoil grew. Snapping himself back to reality, Leon shook his head, trying to focus. Against his better judgment, he allowed his eyes to momentarily wander toward the shower. Whether he truly peeked or not remained unclear. What he saw was fleeting and ambiguous, impossible to confirm. Moments later, Rosweiss emerged, now dressed in her pajamas. Her damp silver hair clung to her skin, and the steam from the shower still lingered around her. Leon's breath caught as he took in the sight. Rosweiss met his gaze with a calm demeanor, her voice cutting through the charged atmosphere. "You're here. Let's get started." Her tone was steady, but the moment felt anything but ordinary. Leon's heart skipped a beat, his composure wavering. The scene felt almost surreal, as though it were a natural progression yet entirely unexpected. Rosweiss's beauty was undeniable, capable of captivating anyone who laid eyes on her. Leon, however, found himself grappling with a flicker of nervousness, a thought crossing his mind, "Am I about to be squeezed dry again?" The lingering tension left the romance suspended, teasing at what might unfold. Hours later, an extra layer of their story came to light. After 6 long hours, the photos were finally ready. Myun and Noah eagerly sifted through the pictures of their parents, Leon and Rosweiss. Myun's eyes sparkled with excitement as she exclaimed, "Mom and Dad look like such a perfect match." Noah, in contrast, remained quiet, her gaze fixed on the photos with an unreadable expression. As Leon flipped through the pictures, something caught his attention. "Hey, there's a card attached to this one," he remarked, holding it up. Rosweiss, her curiosity piqued, stepped closer and demanded, "Show it to me." Together, they turned the photo over to reveal a handwritten note from the head shopkeeper. Reading it aloud, they spoke in unison, "May the silver light always shine in the eyes of the one they love." Their faces instantly turned a deep shade of red. Embarrassed, they both protested at once. "Who's in love with whom?" Leon sputtered, "Who's in love with her?" Rosweiss snapped, "Who's in love with him?" Still flustered, Rosweiss briefly hid her face behind her hands before muttering indignantly, "There must be some mistake. Fix this photo for me." Leon, nodding in agreement, replied quickly, "Yeah, it must have been written wrong." Later, as Rosweiss stepped out of the shower room, her damp silver hair falling gracefully over her shoulders, she asked without hesitation, "Where would you like to do it? The living room or the balcony?" Leon froze in place, utterly blindsided by her words. His face flushed a deep red, panic setting in. Stammering, he replied nervously, "The balcony? That's not good, right? I mean, people might see us, that would be embarrassing." Rosweiss, with an air of indifference, casually adjusted her hair in the mirror. "The living room is fine then," she replied. "It makes no difference to me." Leon exhaled deeply, feeling as though he were trapped in an impossible situation. Finally, with a dramatic sigh, he clenched his fists and shouted, "Fine. Come on, do it." He threw himself onto the sofa, teeth gritted and eyes tightly shut, bracing for whatever was about to come. Rosweiss, observing his odd behavior, raised an eyebrow in amusement. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness. Leon cracked one eye open, his face still burning with embarrassment. "Aren't you going to, do it?" he blurted out, unable to hide his flustered state. Rosweiss, now seated elegantly on the opposite sofa with her legs crossed, let a sly smile spread across her face. Her calm, composed demeanor only added to the tension in the room, leaving Leon to wonder what exactly he had just gotten himself into. Rosweiss couldn't resist teasing as she remarked with a playful smirk, "Mr. Casanova seems quite eager." Her tone shifted to one of calm playfulness as she added, "But tonight isn't suitable. Let's do it another day." Leon froze, her words striking him like lightning. Breaking the moment, Rosweiss placed a paper on the table. Leon, quickly composing himself, sat upright on the sofa and coughed awkwardly before asking, "What's this?" Rosweiss adjusted her posture and explained, "These are test questions from St. Heath Academy. They used to evaluate viviparous families in the past. The questions focus on the partner's living habits, personalities, and shared experiences." She placed more papers on the table and continued, "We need to get these answers right in advance. If we can't respond properly later, it could affect Noah's admission evaluation." Leon picked up the paper, skimming through the questions. With a skeptical look, he commented, "These are like questions from one of those cheesy couples' tacit understanding games." Rosweiss raised an eyebrow and replied, "Cheesy or not, they're important." Leon shrugged, scanning the paper further. "They're asking about stuff like your partner's favorite color, a phrase they often say, where you went on your first date, or which book they like to read." "Really?" Looking up, he asked, "All right then, Rosweiss, what's your favorite color?" "Black," she replied calmly, then returned the question, "What about you?" "Silver," Leon answered without hesitation. Their eyes locked, an unspoken realization settling between them. The intensity of their gaze grew until both became self-conscious, their faces flushing red. They quickly turned away, brushing off the moment. "It's just a coincidence," Rosweiss muttered, glancing to the side. "Yeah, just a coincidence," Leon agreed, scratching the back of his head and looking in the opposite direction. Clearing her throat, Rosweiss snapped their focus back to the task. "In any case, we need to test how well we know each other." "Fine by me," Leon replied, grabbing a pen. The two began filling in their answers, their focus entirely on the task. After a short while, Leon leaned back and declared, "I'm done." Rosweiss finished moments later and nodded. "Let's check the scores." They swapped papers to review each other's answers. When they finished tallying, Rosweiss had scored 45 points, while Leon scored 58. Leon leaned back with a smug grin. Looks like I scored higher than you. Seems like I know the queen better than she knows me. Glancing at her score, she felt a mixture of frustration and surprise. Thoughts raced through her mind. I didn't expect him to notice even my small habits, she admitted to herself. The way I sit or how I position my tail to feel comfortable. He must be more observant than I thought. Her gaze drifted to a particular question on the test. Has your partner ever been particularly disappointed with you about something? Leon had answered yes, but Rosweiss had marked no. Seeing his response, she sighed inwardly. The truth is, the only mistakes he's ever made are in guessing my thoughts, she reflected. Crossing her arms and briefly closing her eyes, she admitted, I've always kept things to myself, never really sharing openly with anyone. No wonder he guessed wrong. When she looked back at Leon, he was engrossed in the question paper, his brows furrowed in concentration. Watching him, a soft thought crept into her mind. Maybe, if it's him, I could rely on him. I could open up to him someday. Leon suddenly noticed her gaze. Her eyes were steady, intense, and somehow endearing. For a moment he wondered, is she mad about the score? The thought amused him and he chuckled inwardly. Placing a hand on her shoulder, he teased lightly, hey, it's no big deal. We haven't spent that much time together yet. It's only natural that you wouldn't score high this time. Rosweiss blinked, startled as though snapped out of a trance. Her eyes darted to his hand, then back to his face. Leon smiled warmly and added, give it a little more time, and you'll know me better than I know myself. His words were light-hearted, but the sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. Her heart skipped a beat, and soon it was pounding so loudly she was certain he could hear it. She clutched the question paper tightly, trying to steady herself as an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. What's wrong with me? She wondered, her face flushed as she avoided his gaze. In an attempt to mask her flustered state, she abruptly slammed the question paper into his face. Blushing fiercely, she demanded, stop talking nonsense and write down your correct answers. Leon, unfazed and still smiling, leaned back and teased, wait, did you really get this question wrong? He pointed to her previous answer and said, you told me you've never been disappointed in me before. Rosweiss, clearly flustered, denied it with a quick shake of her head. But then, after a brief pause, she added, if I must point out something, it would be the lack of Dragon Great Forces last time. Leon smirked and teased, from now on, I'll make Dragon Great Force pills my meals. Don't regret it later. With a sly smile, Rosweiss replied, I'm looking forward to it. As the scene shifted to the night before the entrance exam, Leon was reviewing the question paper. He nodded in satisfaction, noting, after a week of hard work, our average score on the test questions is over 80. If we perform normally, there shouldn't be any issue with the family assessment. Rosweiss, utterly exhausted, collapsed onto the bed without a word. Seeing her unresponsive, Leon got up and said, if there's nothing else, I'll head back first. He turned to leave, but just as he reached the door, she grabbed his shirt sleeve, stopping him. Wait, she said softly, her tone catching him off guard. Leon turned back, a questioning look on his face as Rosweiss pointed toward the shower room. There's a bathtub in my bathroom. Go take a bath and then come back. Leon blinked in surprise, stunned by her unexpected suggestion. What do you mean by telling me to take a shower in your room? He asked, bewildered. Without hesitation, Rosweiss began pushing him toward the shower room. Just go and wash when I tell you to. Hurry up, she insisted. Rosweiss, Leon protested, calling her name, but she ignored him and continued pushing until he was inside. Once Leon was in the shower room, she quickly closed the door. Standing by the door, Leon began taking off his shirt, perplexed. Why does she want me to take a shower in her bathroom for no reason? He wondered aloud. He questioned if she was planning something strange but sighed, reasoning that her nerves were probably just frayed due to the entrance exam. Concluding it was nothing serious, Leon decided to relax and enjoy the bath. Immersed in the hot water, he leaned back and sighed contentedly. This feels so good, he murmured to himself. As Leon soaked in the tub, Rosweiss slowly opened the bathroom door. She was wrapped in a towel, her presence catching Leon completely off guard. Seeing her, he loudly called out her name in shock. Rosweiss smirked, flicking her hair behind her ear as the dragon mark on her chest began to glow faintly. Looking at him, she said, I've been feeling a lot of pressure these days and I want to do it now. Leon's face turned pale as her words registered. Internally panicking, he thought, what I've been fearing has finally come true. The dragon mark on Rosweiss' chest began resonating with the mark on his, creating a visible connection. Alarmed, Leon stood up abruptly, shouting, "Why? If you're under pressure, why are you putting it on me?" Ross Weiss, smiling mischievously and winking at him, replied, "By transferring the pressure to you, I can feel relieved. Isn't that right?" Ross Weiss removed the towel from her body and stood before Leon, completely bare, her gaze unwavering. She asked pointedly if he hadn't arrived here with this intention just a few days ago. Leon, unable to refute the truth in her words, averted his eyes and silently acknowledged her statement, realizing he had no way to decline her. Without hesitation, Ross Weiss stepped into the bathtub, joining Leon, her body pressing gently against his chest. Locking eyes with him, she leaned closer and said he couldn't escape anymore, urging him to surrender completely. Leon, unable to resist her, complied as their dragon marks began to glow with increasing intensity, the light bright and undeniable. The next day at the admission test for St. Heath Academy, Leon and Ross Weiss arrived alongside Noah. Leon marveled at the sight of the prestigious institution. His voice filled with awe as he remarked, "So this is St. Heath Academy?" He turned toward Ross Weiss, noticing her unusually quiet demeanor and serious expression. Concerned, Leon leaned closer and asked what was wrong, joking that he had performed decompression for her last night, but it seemed to have worn off quickly. Ross Weiss's face turned red with embarrassment, and she hit his back lightly, muttering under her breath for him to go to hell. Leon laughed at her reaction and encouraged her to move on, and together they entered the academy. At the registration desk, they submitted Noah's details. The receptionist, reading from the form, announced, "Noah K. Melk, Silver Dragon Clan." Her skeptical expression did not go unnoticed by Leon, who immediately asked if there was an issue. The receptionist assured them there was none but admitted her surprise. She explained that while the academy allowed young dragons to enroll at a minimum age of 1 year, most applicants were between 4 and 6 years old. With a faint smirk, the receptionist teasingly asked if Noah was the princess of their clan, suggesting she might be too young. Ross Weiss, her face composed and authoritative, responded firmly that Noah was exceptionally intelligent and her age posed no obstacle. Respecting her decisive tone, the receptionist nodded and instructed them to proceed. She informed them that Noah would be escorted by a special staff member to the written test, while Leon and Ross Weiss would need to head to the 4th floor for the family assessment. On the 4th floor, inside the meeting room, Leon and Ross Weiss sat across from the academy staff. Ross Weiss leaned close to Leon, holding his hand with a warm smile, and whispered playfully, asking if, based on his experience, he thought the 3 individuals in front of them would be easy to handle. Leon glanced at them, his face stoic and disinterested. In a low voice he replied that they looked easy to kill. Reflecting silently, he noted that the version of himself from before Ross Weiss had captured his heart would have eliminated all 3 in under 50 rounds. His expression darkened, his jaw clenched, and his body radiated a palpable killing intent. Tightening his fist, Leon whispered to Ross Weiss that if these individuals dared to prevent Noah from attending the academy, he would confront them with his sword. The 3 academy staff, although maintaining their composure outwardly, could feel the overwhelming intensity of Leon's aura. Internally, they acknowledged him as a truly intimidating and imposing parent. An older man, introducing himself as Walter Wilson, the vice principal of St. Heath Academy, calmly explained that he would be overseeing their assessment for the day. His demeanor was composed as he reassured them not to be nervous, advising them to simply relax and answer his questions. Ross Weiss forced a polite smile and nodded, while Leon, offering a strained smile, silently assessed the man. He couldn't shake the feeling that this vice principal wasn't as simple as he appeared and wondered if something unusual might be about to happen. The vice principal then posed a question. Did they remember the date of their wedding anniversary? Ross Weiss and Leon exchanged a brief glance, both of them knowing this question was coming. Back in their bedroom at Silver Dragon Castle, Ross Weiss had once told Leon that they needed to be prepared if anyone ever asked about their anniversary. Since they had never officially married and she had become pregnant before they could tie the knot, they had planned a response. Leon, recalling her words, paused for a moment and then answered that if he had to pick a day that left a lasting impression, it would be that one. Ross Weiss, following his lead, completed the answer by stating it was in the year 1733 of the creation calendar. In the interview room, both Leon and Ross Weiss confidently answered that it was May 25th. Leon, however, couldn't help but reflect silently on the fact that May 25th was the day he and Ross Weiss had first bonded in the dungeon. The vice principal glanced at the papers they had submitted, his expression tinged with suspicion. He remarked that their child was already over 1 year old, despite their marriage lasting less than 2 years, noting that this progression seemed faster than what was typical for most families. Leon, laughing awkwardly, quickly explained that they had fallen in love at first sight, had a wonderful relationship, and things had progressed rapidly, including their marriage and pregnancy. Shifting his attention, the vice principal then asked if, during their 2 years of marriage, they had discovered any shortcomings or bad habits in each other. Leon answered yes, while Rosweiss replied no. Internally, they both thought their answers should be a mix of truth and fiction, just enough to seem convincing. When asked to elaborate, Leon put on an act, his face falling into a sad expression. With an Oscar-worthy performance, he dramatically explained that sometimes he felt invisible, as though he didn't exist. Blushing, he placed his hand on his chest and continued, describing how his wife was so capable, managing family affairs and housework with exceptional order, which made him feel insignificant. As Leon delivered his monologue, Rosweiss stared at him, unimpressed. Flustered now, Leon turned to her, gently taking her hands in his face still red. Rosweiss, playing along with Leon's act and blushing as well, gazed into his eyes. In a soft voice, Leon expressed his concern, telling her that she easily accumulated stress, and he wanted to take this opportunity to say something important. He told her that he wanted to do more for their family and asked her to rely on him. Internally, however, he thought that she shouldn't take advantage of him when he's under pressure in the future. An older woman suddenly interjected, commenting on how considerate and good a husband Leon seemed to be. She then turned to Rosweiss and asked her what she thought was the most attractive thing about her husband. Surprised, Rosweiss paused for a moment before answering. With a flushed face, she described Leon as handsome, with a great figure, focused, serious, smart, responsible, fond of children, and someone who never lost his temper. She added that he wasn't greasy, which made him even more attractive. Rosweiss also mentioned that although her health hadn't been as good as it was before marriage, it wasn't a major issue since Leon was skilled at making medicine and used various remedies to treat her. Leon, hearing her praise, forced a smile but laughed awkwardly. Internally, he wondered if she was truly praising him or subtly insulting him. As the conversation continued, Rosweiss, still holding Leon's hands, looked into his eyes with a concerned expression. Caught off guard, Leon awkwardly glanced back at her, unsure how to respond. Rosweiss then added that she also wanted to take the opportunity to tell her husband not to push himself too much. As she spoke, she tightened her grip on Leon's hand, applying enough pressure that he screamed internally in pain. The three assessors, completely fooled by their act, thought to themselves what a loving couple they made. Later, the three assessors asked Rosweiss and Leon a series of questions, and the couple answered each one with poise and grace, leaving a strong impression. As the interview neared its conclusion, the older man asked if they had any questions for the other party. He explained that this was an additional question, and the person being asked must answer truthfully. Rosweiss, shaking her head with a light smile, responded that she had no questions for Leon because she already knew everything about him. The old man then turned to Leon and asked if he had a question for Rosweiss. Leon, appearing deep in thought, paused for a moment. Rosweiss, watching him with a smirking smile, thought to herself that the more one spoke, the more mistakes they made, and it would be better to wrap up the assessment quickly. Leon suddenly asked Rosweiss if she liked the teddy bear he had given her. Rosweiss, hearing his words, was taken aback, her face flushing red. Internally, Rosweiss finds it surprising that Leon would ask such a question, one that seemed completely unrelated to identity, position, or grudges. She thought his thoughts always managed to catch her off guard. Flicking her hair behind her ear, still blushing slightly, she responded that she liked the teddy bear very much. Hearing her answer, Leon smiled with satisfaction, telling her that he understood and was fine with her response. The vice principal, shaking hands with Leon, announced that the interview was over. He informed them that the results of the assessment would be sent to Silver Dragon Castle via dragon letter in a few days and thanked them once again for their cooperation. With the interview and Noah's test completed, the group returned to Silver Dragon Castle. A few days later, a little red dragon arrived with news from the academy. Myun, seeing the dragon calling out to Noah, excitedly exclaimed that the dragon letter had arrived. Leon picked up the letter from the dragon and opened it, saying, "Let's have a look." The letter read, "Dear Noah Kane Melkve, congratulations on passing the academy's assessment. Please come to the academy in 3 days to register and attend the entrance ceremony." The four of them, reading the letter, expressed their surprise and joy at Noah's acceptance. Myun, hugging Noah and rubbing her cheek against hers, said, "You're amazing, sis, and your parents are amazing too." Noah, looking at the admission letter, smiled for the first time during the entire exchange. Rosweiss, glancing at Leon, thanked him. Leon, feeling proud, asked, "Why is she thanking me?" "It's mainly up to Noah herself. She's truly worthy of being my daughter." Rosweiss, winking as she left, said she would make a big meal to celebrate and suggested Leon come help so people wouldn't say he didn't exist in the family. Leon, smirking, agreed, saying, "I find you very petty, always holding a grudge."
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see another part. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time. Bye-bye.
The entrance ceremony at St. Heath Academy was underway, with the vice principal standing on stage to congratulate the students on passing the assessments and welcoming them to this prestigious event. His speech emphasized the significance of the occasion, highlighting the importance of the families who had qualified to enroll their children. He spoke at length about how many new students had demonstrated exceptional academic performance, attributing such excellence to the foundation of a harmonious family environment. Seizing the opportunity, he invited some of these families to share their experiences with the audience. Among those called to the stage was Noah Kane Melkvi, one of the top-ranked students in the freshman class, along with her family. Upon hearing this announcement, Myun quickly realized that her parents and sister were being summoned, a fact confirmed by a subtle nod from the Silver Dragon maid, Anna. As Leon, Rosweiss, and Noah stepped onto the stage, the audience greeted them with applause, and the staff welcomed them with approving gestures. Leon, wearing an awkward smile, couldn't help but reflect on how he had ended up in this situation. The answer lay in what had transpired an hour earlier. Just before the ceremony, the principal had informed them that Noah had achieved the highest score in the entrance exam, while their family had secured first place in the family assessment. With this recognition, the vice principal had requested them to represent the freshmen and deliver a speech at the event. Now, standing on stage with a forced smile, Leon had no choice but to face the situation. As Noah stepped forward to the microphone, the vice principal acknowledged her as the youngest candidate to attain the highest score and invited her to share her experiences. The audience turned their attention toward her, waiting expectantly. Displaying confidence and composure, she began by expressing admiration for her mother, describing her as a powerful dragon and a role model who had always inspired her. Recalling the moment she proposed the idea of attending school, she emphasized the unwavering support she had received in response. As she spoke, Rosweiss glanced at her with a soft smile, clearly proud of her words. Shifting her focus, Noah turned to her sister, Myun, sharing how she had always been a constant source of encouragement and love. Myun watched from the audience with bright, hopeful eyes, deeply moved by her sister's gratitude. As Noah paused briefly, a small sigh escaped her lips. On stage, Leon's mind drifted, wondering if she would acknowledge him. When she spoke again, her voice softened as she addressed the person she wished to thank the most, her father. She recounted how he had reviewed material with her every day, staying up late into the night to prepare resources for her studies. It was his dedication and unwavering support that had allowed her to stand there that day. Hearing her words, Leon was overwhelmed with emotion. Tears welled up in his eyes as he softly called her name. Touched beyond words, Noah concluded her speech with a polite expression of gratitude to the audience before stepping back from the microphone. The vice principal, visibly moved, remarked on the depth of respect Noah held for her father, suggesting that Leon demonstrate his fatherly affection with a kiss. For a moment, Leon was stunned, his thoughts racing as he tried to process the unexpected suggestion. His gaze shifted between the vice principal and Noah, recalling how she had barely tolerated his touch just a month ago. The idea of her allowing such a gesture in public seemed unthinkable. Leaning slightly toward her, he whispered a proposal to settle for a simple hug instead. Noah, however, averted her gaze, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Her voice, barely audible yet firm, urged him to finish the kiss and end the socially mortifying ordeal. Leon stared at her, momentarily speechless at her sudden change in tone. With heartfelt resolve, he leaned forward and placed a gentle, fatherly kiss on her forehead. The simple act carried a deep sense of pride and affection, marking the moment with quiet significance. From the audience, Myun, unable to contain her excitement, eagerly declared her own desire to kiss her sister. Before she could act on her impulse, Anna swiftly intervened, reminding her that, as a royal, she couldn't disrupt the ceremony by rushing onto the stage. Myun, though reluctant, settled back into her seat, her eyes lingering on Noah with longing. Meanwhile, Rosweiss exhaled in relief, silently grateful that the attention had not shifted toward her. Noah's face burned with embarrassment at the unexpected display of affection. Leon, noticing her reaction, responded with a gentle smile, his expression filled with warmth. The vice principal, visibly moved by the scene, commented on the strength of their family bond, emphasizing that truly remarkable dragons always remember to express gratitude to their loved ones. He praised the Melkvi family as a true example of what a family should be. However, what followed left the entire audience in stunned silence. With an air of cheerful oblivion, the vice principal casually revealed that he had shared similar moments of pride with his own daughter in the past. As if inspired by his own words, he then turned to Leon and suggested that, as a model of a loving couple, he should not forget his wife. Leon and Ross Weiss were both caught off guard, their expressions frozen in shock. Leon's jaw tightened, his fists clenching as he struggled to contain his frustration. Ross Weiss, momentarily pale, instinctively recoiled, unable to find the words to respond. Leon's thoughts churned with irritation, convinced that the old dragon had overstepped. A lingering regret surfaced, reminding him that he should have handled the situation differently during the assessment. Yet, as his gaze fell upon Noah, his anger subsided. This was her moment, the most important entrance ceremony of her life. No matter how infuriating the situation, he refused to let it cast a shadow over her achievement. With renewed determination, he addressed Ross Weiss with exaggerated enthusiasm, ensuring that his voice carried across the room. The unexpected shift in tone left Ross Weiss flustered, her usual composure slipping as she flushed deeply. The audience observed the unfolding scene with growing amusement, the tension on stage transforming into an unusual display of familial affection. Her gaze flickered toward Leon, her embarrassment clear as she quietly questioned whether he truly intended to kiss her in front of hundreds of dragons. Leon, maintaining his composure, reassured her that such an act was out of the question, especially with Noah and Juan watching. Instead, he urged her to follow his lead in handling the delicate moment. Ross Weiss, her face still burning with embarrassment, muttered her dismay at the situation. Determined to press forward, Leon closed the distance between them, moving with slow and deliberate motions. His arms encircled her gently as he leaned in, his thoughts momentarily drifting. Despite having shared a bed and held hands many times before, a kiss between them remained a rarity, with only one brief moment 2 years ago standing as an exception. Ross Weiss, her heart pounding, struggled to understand how Leon remained so composed, seemingly unaffected by the weight of the moment. Pushing aside her thoughts, she resigned herself to what was about to happen, closing her eyes in anticipation of the kiss she expected on her lips. Yet as she waited, the expected kiss never came. Instead, Leon's lips brushed gently against her cheek. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion flickering across her face as she touched the spot where warmth still lingered. The unexpected gesture left her caught between surprise and curiosity. Leon, ever composed, turned to the audience with a respectful bow, making it clear that this was all he intended to offer. A voice from the crowd rose in protest, questioning why he hadn't kissed her on the lips. The murmurs quickly turned into chants, urging them to share another kiss. Amid the growing commotion, Leon leaned toward Ross Weiss, his smirk unmistakable as he whispered to her, his tone laced with amusement. His words, meant to tease, only fueled her frustration. Her jaw tightened, fists clenching as irritation burned within her. The thought of being used to relieve his stress made her seethe with silent rage. If not for the watchful eyes of the audience, she might have acted on her instincts, pinning him down to exact her revenge. But for now, she forced herself to swallow her pride. The day was far from over, and patience would grant her a better opportunity, perhaps once they returned to the Silver Dragon Castle. The vice principal, delighted by the laughter and warmth the Melkvi family had brought to the ceremony, expressed his gratitude before inviting them to step down and take a well-earned rest. With that, Ross Weiss, Leon, and Noah descended the stage together, their presence still lingering as the event moved forward. The entrance ceremony eventually reached its conclusion. As they left the academy grounds, Ross Weiss turned to Noah, her voice carrying a firm yet gentle tone. She informed her daughter that they would be leaving and would return to pick her up the following weekend, reminding her to take care of herself in the meantime. Noah, with a quiet nod, reassured her mother that she would. Muan, unable to hide her emotions, clung tightly to Noah, whispering her wish to stay by her sister's side. Noah, offering a warm smile, comforted her, promising that she would miss her as well. Leon, ever practical, added his own reminders, emphasizing the importance of eating on time, not being picky with food, and dedicating herself to her studies. He reassured her that if anything ever confused her, she could always ask him when she returned home for the holidays. Above all, he stressed the need to visit the academy doctor if she ever felt unwell, warning her not to be stubborn about it. Noah, caught between mild irritation and amusement, reassured Leon that she already understood everything and was no longer a child. Leon, grinning, shifted the focus to Ross Weiss, playfully suggesting that the words were actually hers, spoken in a drunken state. He claimed that she had been too embarrassed to say them herself, so he was simply delivering the message on her behalf. Ross Weiss, arms crossed and expression firm, dismissed his remark as complete nonsense. Leon, without missing a beat, adopted a more serious tone. He advised Noah to keep her distance from classmates with bad personalities but made it clear that if anyone attempted to bully her, she had his full support to fight back. Noah, arching an eyebrow, questioned whether he had ever done the same during his own school years. With a knowing wink, Leon admitted that every time he got into a fight, his teacher, who happened to be her grandfather, would drag him home and discipline him accordingly. Still, he reassured her that there was no need to worry, as he would never punish her for something so trivial. Muan, clinging to his legs, listened closely, absorbing the exchange between them. Noah, after a brief pause, acknowledged his words with a small smile. Within the study room of the Silver Dragon Castle, Ross Weiss sat in quiet contemplation, her attention fixed on an ancient tome. The book detailed a forbidden magic known as the Blood Curse, a spell that could only be cast once in a lifetime. Its power required blood as a medium and claimed the caster's life as payment for its devastating effect. As she read, a faint smirk played on her lips. The concept intrigued her, and she mused that with proper refinement, it could become a useful tool for her own purposes. The stillness of the room was disrupted by the subtle movement of a shadow slipping inside. Without looking up, Ross Weiss acknowledged the presence and inquired about the person's return. Shirley, her trusted maid and a member of the Silver Dragon clan, confirmed her arrival and stepped forward with a report. Ross Weiss, wasting no time, questioned the progress of the investigation. Shirley regretfully admitted that no success had been achieved. Tiger Lawrence and his wife had vanished without a trace within the Empire. Their disappearance was marked by an almost surgical erasure of information, leaving her subordinates unable to uncover any leads. The revelation caught Ross Weiss's full attention. She pressed for clarification, and Shirley elaborated, explaining that all traces of the couple had been wiped clean, suggesting the involvement of someone highly skilled. Ross Weiss, recalling Leon's earlier description of his master as nothing more than a simple old farmer, recognized the glaring inconsistency. It became evident that there was far more to the man than appearances suggested. Before dismissing her maid, she issued a firm directive. Shirley was to prioritize her safety while continuing the investigation and to report any developments immediately. Shirley acknowledged the command with unwavering loyalty. In the garden of the Silver Dragon Castle, Leon stood swinging a branch with all his strength, channeling his full power into each motion. After demonstrating, he turned his attention to Muan, calling her over and instructing her to swing the stick down with force, just as he had done. Muan, filled with enthusiasm, eagerly complied. She grabbed the stick and began swinging it wildly, her movements lacking precision or coordination. Leon observed her for a moment, uncertain how to respond to her chaotic efforts. Deciding to intervene, he stepped forward and began guiding her through the proper technique. He carefully adjusted her grip, demonstrated the correct way to swing, and helped her position herself properly. As the lesson continued, Ross Weiss arrived in the garden. The moment Muan saw her, her face lit up, and she cheerfully acknowledged her mother's presence. Leon also took notice, commenting on her return from her rounds. Ross Weiss responded only with a smirking smile, her gaze meeting Leon's with quiet amusement. Muan wasted no time running to Ross Weiss, wrapping her arms around her mother in a tight embrace. Ross Weiss gently patted her daughter's head and asked if she had listened to her father that day. Muan eagerly confirmed, proudly announcing that her father had even taught her how to hold a sword. Ross Weiss, with a warm smile, acknowledged the effort and deemed it acceptable. She then informed Muan that dinner would be ready soon, mentioning that she had asked the chef to prepare steak. Upon hearing this, Muan's eyes sparkled with excitement. She loudly declared her love for steak before skipping away joyfully, singing a song about it as she left. Anna, who had been nearby, followed her little highness, ensuring she made her way to the castle. Leon and Ross Weiss remained in place, watching Muan until she disappeared from view. As the moment passed, Ross Weiss turned to Leon about to speak. Before she could say anything, Leon suddenly swung the wooden stick toward her with impressive speed. The movement caught Ross Weiss completely off guard. She froze as the branch came to an abrupt stop just near her throat. Her expression remained cold, but a smirking smile played on her lips as she questioned his intentions, suggesting that he had finally decided to attack her. She reminded him that in the Silver Dragon Castle, pointing a weapon at her was considered an act of treason, punishable by death. Leon, unfazed by the statement, calmly pointed out that it was merely a branch and questioned whether the queen truly considered it a weapon. Ross Weiss, unshaken, reminded him of his past as the strongest dragon slayer, emphasizing that even a simple branch in his hands could be turned into a lethal weapon. Ross Weiss ends her statement with a pointed question, challenging Leon's perspective. Instead of responding directly, he exhales heavily and withdraws the branch. Leaning in slightly, he remarks that if she intends to offer praise, she should do so properly, questioning why she insists on being so sarcastic. Ross Weiss, folding her arms, retorts that she has done no such thing. Leon moves toward a nearby bench, placing his hands behind his head as he walks. He admits that he had intended to startle her but concedes that it would be meaningless if she felt no fear. Watching him with a calm expression, Ross Weiss counters his words, asserting that in his current state, she does not believe he could harm her with a mere twig. Shifting the conversation, she brings up a letter Noah had sent the previous day, informing them that she was doing well and asking them not to worry. As they sit on the bench, Leon glances at her with mild surprise and asks if that was all Noah had written. Ross Weiss denies it, explaining that it was unusual for Noah to take the initiative to write back. However, she had done so specifically to reassure them of her safety. Leon acknowledges this, remarking that in this regard, Noah closely resembles Ross Weiss. Looking up at the sky, he reflects on Noah's nature, noting that she always maintains a stern demeanor, making it difficult to discern her thoughts. However, he adds that when approached correctly, she is quite pleasant to be around. Ross Weiss, following his gaze upward, remarks that Noah actually admires him. She explains that Noah possesses the typical mentality of a dragon, respecting strength and being drawn to those who wield it. Turning to Leon with a faint smile, she continues, stating that in Noah's eyes, he has become a top student, someone worth looking up to. She even mentioned that she intends to win many first-place rankings at the academy, refusing to accept defeat against him. Leon, slightly embarrassed, responds with an awkward smile, admitting that he had always assumed Noah viewed him as nothing more than a weak scholar. Removing her heels, Ross Weiss subtly shifts the conversation, recalling the time when Leon first woke up. She points out how Noah had initially avoided him and asks if she was right about that. Without waiting for an answer, she reveals that despite Noah's outward behavior, she had frequently visited him while he was in a coma. On occasion, when caught, she would make excuses, claiming she had only come to see Moan. Leon, his expression softening, remarks that Noah's tougher side is very much like Ross Weiss. Ross Weiss, now gazing into the distance, reflects on their childhood. She recalls how, as infants, Noah and Moan would cry inconsolably, only to calm the moment they were placed next to Leon. She muses that perhaps, even before anyone had realized it, the bond of blood had already tied them together. Leon lowers his gaze, his expression tinged with sadness as he looks at his hands. Quietly, he reflects on the strangeness of blood relationships. His thoughts drift back to his past, recalling his childhood as an orphan, a time when the love of parents was something he had never known. Family affection had been an unfamiliar concept, something distant and unattainable. It wasn't until he turned 5 that his master and his wife adopted him, treating him as their own son. Through them, he was introduced to the meaning of home for the first time. Despite the warmth they provided, a quiet sense of loss lingered in his heart. Even in the midst of their kindness, a part of him felt empty, longing for something he could never quite grasp. Seated in silence, he recalls how, in those moments of sorrow, his mother would gently pat his head and reassure him, telling him that one day he would become a father himself. Uncertain and filled with doubt, he had questioned whether that was truly possible. In response, she had smiled warmly, affirming that his future children would be his blood, the family he would love, protect, and devote himself to entirely. Pulled back to the present, Leon clenches his fist as those words echo in his mind. With renewed determination, he affirms to himself that his family now is what matters most. As he remains lost in thought, Ross Weiss watches him closely before questioning what has him so distracted. She then suggests they should head back. Snapping out of his reverie, Leon quickly stands and reassures her that it was nothing. Thanking her for her words, he invites her to return together. Instead of slipping her heels back on, Ross Weiss subtly shifts closer to him. Noticing her movement, Leon looks at her in confusion, questioning what she is up to now. With a smirking smile, she remarks that since he wants to thank her, he should help her put on her shoes. Leon stares at her with a long, resigned expression, hesitating between irritation and disbelief. Their bond seems to grow stronger with each interaction, yet her demands continue to push his patience. Ross Weiss, still smirking, repeats her request, insisting that if he truly wants to express gratitude, he should assist her. Leon, taken aback, repeats her words in disbelief, questioning whether she seriously expects him to do such a thing. He firmly refuses, declaring that there is no way he will comply. Pointing an accusatory finger at her, he angrily reminds her that washing her feet last time had already been humiliating enough, and now she dares to ask for even more. He questions whether he has any dignity left at all. Before he can protest further, Ross Weiss swiftly kicks him in the face, cutting off his complaints without hesitation. Ross Weiss coldly reminded Leon that she still had not settled the score for the kiss at the entrance ceremony, and now he refused to help her put on her shoes. With an arrogant expression, she ordered him to stop talking nonsense and complete the task so they could leave. Grumbling under his breath, Leon finally relented, crouching down to slip the shoes onto her feet. As he finished, Ross Weiss smirked, commenting on how quick his movements were despite his initial reluctance. Leon retorted that it was indeed easy, far easier than putting shoes on a donkey. The moment the words left his mouth, her expression darkened. Gritting her teeth in anger, she glared at him before attempting to kick his head again. This time, however, Leon was prepared. Smiling, he bent backward, effortlessly dodging her attack as her leg cut through the air. Without wasting a moment, he sprang up and darted off, taunting her as he ran. Calling back over his shoulder, he mockingly declared that as long as he was fast enough, she would never catch him. Ross Weiss stood still, fists clenched, her glare following his retreating figure. Though he had escaped for now, she silently vowed that no matter how fast he ran, nothing would save him from what awaited him that night. The details of what transpired that night remain unknown, but one can only imagine how things unfolded. A few days later, Leon, Ross Weiss, and Muon stood outside, waiting. As Ross Weiss and Leon turned their gaze to the sky, Muon, filled with excitement, eagerly pointed upward, signaling for them to come closer. A massive dragon flew overhead at incredible speed. Its sheer size caught Leon's attention, standing several times larger than Ross Weiss's transformed form. The approaching creature was a leviathan, a giant dragon renowned for its endurance and impressive stature. Observing it carefully, Ross Weiss noted that despite its overwhelming size, it was not particularly powerful. Its exceptional stamina and stable emotions made it the perfect transporter for the dragon clan. Curious about her statement, Leon asked what she meant by emotionally stable. Ross Weiss explained that a leviathan's temperament remained calm throughout its thousands of years of life, never losing its temper even once. Because of this, the Academy often relied on them to transport baby dragons. As they continued to watch, the leviathan descended, releasing Noah onto the ground. She landed with effortless grace before turning to Ross Weiss, announcing her return. Ross Weiss welcomed her warmly, her gaze softening at the sight of her daughter. Muon, unable to contain her excitement, rushed forward and embraced Noah tightly, expressing just how much she had been missed. Noah, with a slight blush on her face, hesitated as she tried to speak to Leon, her words faltering midway. Leon noticed her discomfort and realized that she had not yet grown accustomed to calling him Dad. Together with Ross Weiss, they held their daughter's hands as they walked inside. On the way, Leon expressed his happiness at Noah's return, mentioning that he and her mother had prepared many of her favorite dishes to celebrate her homecoming. Once inside the Silver Dragon Castle, Noah presented her test papers to Leon and Ross Weiss, proudly listing her achievements. She had secured first place with full marks in several subjects, including Basics of Alchemy Machinery, Introduction to Magic, Young Dragon Edition, and History of the Dragon Clan, Young Dragon Volume. Ross Weiss smiled proudly as she looked over the papers, her admiration clear, while Muon watched with wide, curious eyes, captivated by her sister's accomplishments. However, when Noah hesitated before mentioning her final subject, her voice softened. For all-round physical fitness, she had only scored 95 points and did not secure first place. Apologizing for the shortcoming, she appeared slightly dejected. Despite this, Ross Weiss, still immensely proud, reassured her daughter with a gentle tone, telling her there was no need to apologize, as her performance was already extraordinary. Muon, agreeing with their mother, firmly held Noah's hand, expressing her unwavering support and silently thinking her sister was the best, regardless of the results. Meanwhile, Leon carefully examined the test papers, a smile of mixed emotions crossing his face as he looked at his two daughters. He reflected on how Noah struggled to express her feelings, while Muon wore her heart on her sleeve. As their father, Leon felt it was his role to balance their differences. Reviewing the all-round physical fitness test, Leon commented on the results. He noted that exercises such as running, bench pressing, and pull-ups were all basic physical training. Given that Noah was competing against young dragons only 4 or 5 years old, it was natural that her physical fitness was slightly behind theirs. Showing the paper to Noah, he pointed out that she had won 9 out of 10 actual combat matches, boasting the highest winning rate in her class. He emphasized that her success in combat demonstrated superior strategy and fighting skills, despite not being the strongest physically. Leon reassured Noah that she shouldn't be discouraged by coming in third, reminding her that there would be plenty of opportunities to surpass others in the future. Noah, understanding her father's words, nodded. She mentioned that her mother had told her that Leon had been the top student in every subject when he was in school. Leon, with a smile, explained that when he first entered school he wasn't at the top, but through hard work and perseverance he had gradually earned that position. He encouraged Noah to stay confident, reminding her that she still had plenty of time to improve. Noah, determined, clenched her fists and nodded in agreement. Muon, filled with curiosity, asked her parents who would win in a fight between them, considering how powerful Leon was. Leon and Ross Weiss, placing their hands on their chests, each expressed confidence in their own abilities, with Leon asserting it would be him and Ross Weiss claiming it would be her. The playful rivalry between them escalated, as they exchanged glances and their competitive spirits flared up. Leon, chuckling, boasted about his combat prowess, confident that no one could match him in hand-to-hand weapon or magic combat. Ross Weiss, folding her arms with a smirk, responded that while she hadn't won as many honors as Leon, she focused on winning the key games. The two continued their playful rivalry, teasing each other with hidden meanings in their words, especially with the children listening nearby. Leon smirked, referring to their time in the dungeon and joking that the reason they had 2 daughters was that Ross Weiss had failed to beat him. Without warning, Leon and Ross Weiss dashed out of the room, both eager to demonstrate their strength in a fight. Muon and Noah awkwardly watched them before chasing after their parents. Noah grabbed Muon's hand, urging her to catch up. As Leon and Ross Weiss began warming up outside, Muon and Noah sat down to observe. Muon expressed her curiosity about who would be stronger, asking Noah if her guess was correct. Noah, recalling what their teacher had said, mentioned that watching masters compete often helps improve their own fighting skills. Ross Weiss, with a mocking glance at Leon, suggested that his body probably wasn't fully recovered yet to fight her, teasing him. Leon, smirking, replied confidently, dismissing her concern and stating that this rare opportunity to fight the Silver Dragon Queen must be seized. Ross Weiss, still smiling, proposed making the fight more interesting with a bet. She explained that if Leon won she wouldn't touch him for a month. But if she won he would have to fulfill one of her requests. Leon, hearing her proposition, became serious, wondering what kind of demand she might make, but he agreed, thinking the risk was worth it. He was happy at the thought of having a month off, something he wouldn't have dared to imagine under normal circumstances. With determination he accepted the bet. Ross Weiss, confidently smiling, was ready to begin. Leon, equally confident, grinned as the fight began, filled with intensity. Both fighters studied each other with unwavering focus, ensuring that no movement went unnoticed. The anticipation built as they awaited the signal to begin the duel. Nearby, Noah and Muon sat on a bench, eating popcorn while eagerly watching their parents prepare to clash. Muon, enjoying the sweet taste of her snack, absent-mindedly swung her legs. In an unfortunate moment, her foot struck a bottle of pineapple juice beside her, knocking it over. She reacted instantly, reaching out to catch it, but the bottle had already tipped. The liquid spilled onto the ground just as Leon and Ross Weiss remained on edge, their heightened awareness mistaking the sudden motion for the cue to begin. The instant the juice container touched the ground, both fighters sprang into action. Leon moved first, his serious expression reflecting his respect for the duel. With a powerful stomp, he propelled himself into the air, gathering energy into his right fist before launching a devastating punch toward Ross Weiss. Anticipating his attack, she raised her arms in defense, bracing herself for impact. The charged strike connected with her block, generating enough force to crack the ground beneath her feet. Despite absorbing the hit, she seized the moment, countering with a swift tail strike aimed at his chin. Leon reacted instantly, gritting his teeth as he leaned back to avoid the attack. Rosweiss, not letting up, swung her tail once more in rapid succession. He continued evading, planting both hands on the ground and flipping backward with fluid precision. As her offensive momentum waned, he shifted his stance, transitioning to balance on one hand. In one smooth motion he redirected his weight, infused magic into his left foot, and delivered a powerful kick. Rosweiss raised her arms to block, but this strike carried far greater force. The impact sent her skidding backward, her feet carving deep trails into the sand. She barely managed to stabilize herself, lowering one hand to the ground as she reassessed the fight. A realization dawned on her: physical combat put her at a disadvantage. A change in strategy was necessary. Channeling magic into her hands, she prepared to unleash her dragon flames. The energy swirled around her, lifting the sand as its raw power surged. Leon observed her movements, recognizing the shift in her approach. Without hesitation, she divided the condensed flames into multiple projectiles and unleashed them in his direction. He responded by sprinting to the side, narrowly avoiding the incoming attack. Upon impact, the flames exploded with deafening force, leaving deep craters in their wake. The battlefield transformed as she adjusted her offense, controlling the space and restricting his movements. From their seats, Noah and Muin watched intently. The tide of battle seemed to turn against their father. Muin's previous excitement gave way to concern as she stared at him, questioning whether he was at a disadvantage. Noah, maintaining a composed demeanor, analyzed the fight. Based on her observations, she identified their combat strategies. Leon relied on close-range attacks and evasive maneuvers, while Rosweiss focused on controlling the distance with ranged magic. The ongoing exchange suggested that Rosweiss lacked confidence in direct confrontation, relying instead on creating openings through sustained pressure. Muin's worry gradually shifted to admiration as Noah's explanation provided clarity. The battle remained unpredictable, but the unfolding clash revealed far more than mere strength. It was a test of adaptability, precision, and the ever-shifting balance between power and strategy. A bright expression lit up her face as she leaned toward Noah, admiration evident in her gaze. Noah's cheeks flushed slightly at the praise and she looked away, downplaying her knowledge as something merely taught in class. On the training ground, Rosweiss pressed her attack against Leon, unleashing dragon flames with precise control. She had already recognized that he couldn't unleash his full strength while evading her magic. A confident smirk appeared as she increased the intensity, forcing him into a constant retreat. The flames exploded around him, some narrowly grazing past, while the impact sent sand and debris scattering in every direction. Leon remained focused, dodging each strike while occasionally glancing back. His confidence remained unshaken, though Rosweiss was far from impressed. Without hesitation, she refined her approach, gathering energy into her hands and condensing the flames into two massive forms. The blazing projectiles moved with intent, closing in on Leon from both sides, leaving no room to escape. His eyes widened as he searched for an opening, but none presented itself. The battle intensified as both fighters matched each other's strength. At the peak of the clash, Leon spotted a weakness in Rosweiss's defense. Without wasting a moment, he prepared his final move, determined to claim victory. Leon's eyes widened as the towering flames closed in. He scanned his surroundings for an opening, but none appeared. The dragon flames erupted in a powerful explosion, unleashing a blinding purple light and carving a massive crater into the battlefield. Thick smoke and dust billowed into the air, concealing the outcome. Then, from within the haze, a flash of blue lightning tore through the obscured battlefield. In the next instant, Leon emerged from the smoke, soaring high above the destruction. His body crackled with blue energy, bolts of lightning wrapping around him as he ascended. Leon met Rosweiss with a confident smile, his words carrying an air of certainty. As he rushed forward, the force of his movement sent a strong wind through the air. Her eyes widened slightly as she took note of the electric energy surging around his body. She quickly recognized his method. He was using thunder magic to reinforce his physical strength once again. Determined, Leon stomped forcefully on the ground, adjusting his position before launching himself toward her with renewed intensity. More lightning crackled around him, signaling that he had pushed his body even further with his magic. For the sake of preserving his hard-earned break, he was willing to push himself to the limit. Without hesitation, Leon unleashed a rapid flurry of punches toward Rosweiss. His strikes moved at such incredible speed that they almost seemed invisible, resembling streaks of lightning cutting through the air. Rosweiss gritted her teeth, keeping her focus sharp as she blocked his attacks with both hands. However, the sheer speed of his assault forced her onto the defensive, making it increasingly difficult to keep up. A tight frown formed on her face as she continued to deflect his blows, but concern settled in her mind. Leon's body had yet to fully recover, yet he recklessly pushed himself beyond his limits. His current strength, amplified by thunder magic, placed an immense strain on him. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Rosweiss knew she needed to bring the fight to a swift conclusion. Meanwhile, Leon noticed the slight strain in her expression, a subtle but clear indication that she was beginning to falter. He saw her focus waver for just a moment and seized the opportunity. Abruptly halting his punches, he extended his left leg, sweeping toward her feet with precise timing. Rosweiss reacted instantly but was caught off guard by the unexpected maneuver. Before she could fully evade, Leon's sweep connected, causing her balance to waver. She instinctively leaned back in an attempt to recover, but the situation left her with no clear opening to counterattack. Gathering all his remaining thunder magic into his right fist, Leon moved in for the finishing blow. His unwavering gaze met hers, a confident expression making his intentions clear. Victory was within his grasp. Rosweiss had intended to regain her footing and mount a defense, but Leon's sudden shift in tactics left her vulnerable. Her hand reached out, but with no solid support, she began to fall. Just as Leon was about to strike, he noticed her precarious state and realized she could be seriously hurt. Without hesitation, he withdrew his attack, quickly dissipating the energy around his fist. Reaching out, he caught her before she could hit the ground, pulling her toward him with a firm grip. The sudden movement caused them to shift positions, and as Rosweiss regained her balance, she found herself pressed against him. His hand rested on her waist, holding her securely to prevent another stumble. For a brief moment, warmth radiated between them as Rosweiss's chest pressed against Leon's. A strange sensation flickered in the air, something reminiscent of a scene straight out of a romance novel. A faint flush crept onto both of their faces as their gazes locked. Neither moved immediately, caught in the unexpected closeness. Leon slowly leaned in, his expression unreadable as the moment lingered between them. Rosweiss maintained a composed expression as she extended her hand, conjuring dragon flame and pressing it against Leon's chest. Caught off guard, he quickly realized something was wrong. Looking down, he saw the fire burning through his clothing, yet to his surprise he felt no heat. The flames, rather than searing his skin, slowly began to dissipate, leaving only singed fabric and faint scorch marks. Rosweiss regarded him seriously, clearly displeased by his lack of focus during the fight. The battle was not over, and yet he had allowed himself to be distracted. A loud explosion from the lingering flames drew the attention of Noah and Muen, who set aside their snacks and approached. As the smoke settled, curiosity sparked in their eyes as they questioned the outcome. Despite his reluctance, Leon had no choice but to accept defeat. The reality of the situation left no room for argument. With a slight pout, he acknowledged his loss, muttering about his carelessness. Rosweiss, closing her eyes, acknowledged his strength. Without enchanted armor or a weapon to aid him, he had fought solely with his physical prowess, an achievement no one before him had managed. Leon clenched his fists, his pride refusing to let the matter rest. He remained convinced that if he had fought with everything he had, victory would have been his. However, with defeat came the obligation to fulfill the terms of their bet. Rosweiss smiled mischievously, reminding him of their agreement. The weight of her words struck him like an arrow, realization sinking in as he recalled what he had agreed to. His focus on the duel had made him forget about the consequences, and now he faced the price of his loss. Overwhelmed, he collapsed onto the ground, his spirit seemingly leaving him. Noah and Muen crouched beside him, studying his unmoving form with curiosity. Muen, her voice filled with innocence, questioned Rosweiss about his condition. Rosweiss, unfazed, reassured them that he had merely exhausted himself and would recover soon. Later that night, within the children's room at the Silver Dragon Temple, Leon sat with his daughters, his tone gentle but resolute. He instructed Noah to look after Muen in his absence, emphasizing her responsibility as the older sibling. Muen, still young and unaware of many things, would rely on her. Turning to Muen, he reminded her to listen to her sister and avoid causing unnecessary trouble. Both girls listened attentively, their expressions calm. Leon exhaled deeply, his chest heavy with emotion. It was not the upcoming journey that troubled him most but the thought of leaving his daughters behind, even for a short time. They were still so young and he struggled to understand how their mother could so easily separate him from them. Noah, unimpressed, crossed her arms and pointed out that he was only going to their mother's house for a single night. His reaction in her eyes was unnecessarily dramatic. Leon, with a visible shudder, lowered his voice, admitting that spending an entire night at Rosweiss's mercy was far more terrifying than anything else. Muen, her eyes gleaming with excitement, eagerly shared her knowledge. She declared that their mother intended to eat him, referencing a book she had read about female mantises devouring their mates. Leon let out a strained chuckle, tousling her hair. Though her interpretation was not entirely accurate, he admitted that in some way he might still end up being consumed. Rosweiss observed Leon closely, her gaze filled with amusement as he squinted at Muen, pretending suspicion. The moment carried an air of lightheartedness until Rosweiss, standing just outside the doorway, stepped in with a sharp look directed at Leon. Her tone shifted between sternness and gentleness as she addressed the children, ensuring they settled in for the night before turning her attention back to Leon. His reaction to her words betrayed a hint of nervousness, his mind already speculating on what she truly meant. Without allowing him much time to linger on his thoughts, she pulled him along, dismissing his murmured complaints. Before stepping out completely, Leon glanced back at his daughters, his expression softening as he assured them of his love. Once the door closed behind them, Muen curiously whispered her thoughts to Noah, who simply shrugged, unwilling to waste energy figuring out the oddities of adults. Inside the queen's bedroom of the Silver Dragon Temple, Rosweiss sipped her wine, her amusement evident as she observed Leon's growing unease. With a teasing remark, she invited him to join her, though his refusal was immediate and firm. However, her tone shifted, reminding him of his previous promise to fulfill any request should he lose their duel. She pointed out his reluctance, emphasizing the contrast between his words and actions. Leon attempted to maintain his composure, pushing back against her playful provocations, but her next words caught him off guard. She admitted that she had hoped he would win, hinting at a different kind of reward had he emerged victorious. His frustration surfaced as he questioned why she hadn't simply let him win, but her response came with a knowing smirk. She had thought of a more intriguing way to spend the evening. Without breaking eye contact, she poured the dream wine onto her skin, allowing the crimson liquid to glide down in delicate trails. Leon stiffened at the sight, his breath hitching as his mind momentarily blanked. With deliberate intent, she closed the distance between them, her voice low and commanding. The mixture of her scent and the wine's aroma clouded his senses, pushing his resistance to its limit. Despite his struggle, he found himself drawn in, pressing his lips to her skin and drinking from the shimmering trails of wine. Rosweiss reacted subtly, her expression tinged with warmth, yet when he pulled away she dismissed his effort as insufficient. With a teasing glint in her eye, she bit down on her finger, drawing a small drop of blood before letting it fall onto his tongue. The unexpected sensation sent a jolt through him, his instincts urging him to recoil, but by then it was already too late. Rosweiss observes Leon with an unwavering gaze, her expression unreadable as she licks the remaining traces of blood from her lips. Without hesitation, she acknowledges what she has done, revealing the nature of the technique she used. The blood curse courses through Leon's body instantly, sending an unnatural warmth surging through his veins. His pupils dilate, and his breathing becomes erratic as he struggles against the overwhelming sensation. As the effect intensifies, Rosweiss moves closer, her voice carrying a knowing tone as she reminds him of the past. The very technique that once bound her is now being used against him, though she claims to have modified it, reducing its harmful effects while amplifying its more alluring properties. Leon clenches his jaw, his body faltering beneath the weight of the curse. Each attempt to resist only fuels the fire spreading through him. Rosweiss watches his struggle with a quiet satisfaction, her fingers tracing along his chest as she speaks with soft amusement. She points out his constant resistance, the way he has always acted as if there was no choice but to push her away. Yet now, as she leans in, whispering words laced with temptation, his body betrays him. The fight within him crumbles and his knees give way, sending him collapsing onto the bed. With a playful gleam in her eyes, Rosweiss declares the game has begun, her delight evident as she watches Leon tremble beneath the weight of the curse. She taunts him with affectionate amusement, savoring his desperate attempts to maintain control. When he denies losing himself to the enchantment, she only chuckles, summoning a mirror imbued with magic. The object, purchased in Sky City, reflects more than just his strained features. It records both images and voices, capturing the raw honesty of the moment. Placing the mirror before him, she urges him to speak. At first, he hesitates, but then, against his own will, his voice emerges, betraying the turmoil within. His own words ring out, confessing a desire he refuses to acknowledge. Panic flashes in his eyes, his mind screaming in protest, yet Roseweiss sees through his defiance. With a mischievous smile, she pushes him further, challenging him to repeat the words. This time he does not resist. The admission comes louder, clearer, his voice filled with desperation. As soon as the confession leaves his lips, his face burns with humiliation. His fists clench, his knuckles whitening under the strain, but the damage is done. Roseweiss drinks in his expression, her smirk deepening at the sight of his internal battle. She remarks on his shame, teasing that he now appears as though he is begging for something he has spent so long denying. His rejection is immediate, his voice sharp with defiance, yet his actions betray him once more. Without conscious thought, his body moves on instinct, lunging toward her. Roseweiss catches him effortlessly, laughter escaping her lips as she observes his unraveling composure. She notes his impatience, his struggle against the effects of the curse, and the undeniable pull between them. As the haze of magic clouds his mind further, his resistance falters. Words slip from his lips before he can stop them, revealing a longing he refuses to accept. Roseweiss watches closely, recognizing the moment he loses control, the familiar sensation of surrender overtaking him. Roseweiss recognizes the familiar sensation of the blood curse taking hold, a knowing smile curving her lips as she acknowledges that Leon has reached the inevitable point of no return. With unwavering certainty, she embraces what is to come, determined to witness the moment he fully succumbs. As the night unfolds in a haze of heat and unrestrained desire, their pride is stripped away, leaving only the raw weight of the curse binding them together. By morning, Leon stirs, his body aching and his mind clouded with fragments of the previous night. The moment realization dawns, frustration surges through him. He clenches his fists, gritting his teeth in silent fury. Once again he has fallen victim to the curse, his dignity as a dragon slayer reduced to nothing under Rosweiss's influence. The weight of his shame presses down heavier than before, suffocating and relentless. Beside him, Roseweiss remains in deep slumber, her breathing steady, her expression serene, as though oblivious to the chaos she has wrought. In this moment of vulnerability she appears almost defenseless. Without thinking, Leon's hand drifts toward her, his fingertips grazing her cheek. The contact jolts him back to reality and he recoils, his heart pounding at the realization of his own actions. He convinces himself it was nothing more than an unconscious attempt to wake her, yet the lingering doubt in his mind refuses to be silenced. His frustration mounts as he observes her unchanging state. A poke to her forehead elicits no reaction. Even when he shakes her gently and calls her name, she remains unresponsive. His irritation gives way to a creeping concern. The blood curse has unpredictable effects depending on the victim's resilience, and memories of his own near-death experience resurface. It had nearly consumed him, dragging him into a 2-year coma from which he had barely escaped. Yet Roseweiss is different. As the Dragon Queen, her strength is formidable, her endurance beyond ordinary limits. Even so, he estimates that she will likely remain unconscious for at least a week. A smug grin spreads across his face. This presents an opportunity. A single week might not be enough for a human to escape her grasp, but Leon is no ordinary man. With his black gold armor and a steady supply of stamina potions, he is confident that he can reach the human realm before she awakens. Determined, he gathers his belongings, already envisioning his departure. Yet as his thoughts settle, reality crashes down upon him. 2 years have passed since he left the Empire, and he has no knowledge of its current state. His capture had left too many questions unanswered, and returning blindly would be reckless. Setting his potion aside, he furrows his brow, realizing the risks. Roseweiss had already agreed to investigate his master's fate. Perhaps it would be wiser to wait for her findings. More importantly, his daughters remain in Silver Dragon Castle. Gazing out the window, he watches them play, a quiet softness overtaking his expression. He cannot abandon them now. A small, resigned smile forms as the truth becomes undeniable. He must remain. His revenge against Roseweiss is far from complete. That evening, as Noah and Muen step into the room, their concern deepens at the sight of their mother still motionless. Their voices break the silence, calling out to her in growing worry. She has slept through the entire night, and they cannot shake the uneasy feeling that something is wrong. Noah observes Leon with suspicion, narrowing her eyes before questioning him about his activities the previous night. Under her intense scrutiny, he grows visibly uneasy and quickly tries to excuse himself, claiming that he had only been chatting on the balcony. He hastily adds that the cold wind must have been the cause of the illness, attempting to divert any suspicion. Seeking reassurance, he turns to Anna, who remains composed and advises them not to worry. She explains that the temple physician has examined the queen and found her to be in stable condition, aside from some weakness. She then states that she will oversee the clan's affairs in the queen's stead until further notice. Once given approval, she leaves to begin her work. After Anna departs, Muen approaches Rosweiss and gently places a hand on her mother, her voice soft as she pleads for her recovery. Regret lingers in her gaze as she silently wishes she had never caused her distress. Meanwhile, Leon stands quietly beside the bed, observing the sheen of sweat on Rosweiss's skin and realizing that he will need to wipe it off later. His thoughts are interrupted by Noah, who has been silently watching him. Detecting something off in his expression, she frowns and immediately questions his intentions. Her sharp tone conveys deep suspicion as she challenges him directly. Leon, maintaining his composure, reassures her with a calm response, though a faint unease lingers in his demeanor. After a tense moment, Noah sighs, deciding to let the matter rest. She turns to Muen, softening her tone as she encourages her to leave. With one final glance at Rosweiss, Muen whispers a quiet promise to return before following Noah out of the room. Now alone, Leon remains by Rosweiss's side, his gaze lingering on her sleeping form. He exhales, contemplating his next move before deciding to fetch a basin of water and a cloth. Remembering the medicine he applied earlier, he worries about her catching a cold and carefully wrings out the cloth. As he begins wiping away the sweat, he hopes she will not misunderstand his intentions once she wakes. His attention shifts to her unmoving tail, a stark contrast to how she usually carries it with pride. The sight draws a quiet sigh from him as he continues tending to her. Once finished, he hesitates before considering whether he should change her clothes as well. The thought lingers for a moment before practicality takes over. Scanning the room, his eyes land on a nearby cupboard, and curiosity compels him to check inside. He is momentarily stunned by the sheer number of outfits packed within. Reasoning that there are plenty to choose from, he begins sorting through them, tossing garments aside as he searches for something suitable. Eventually, he selects a few options including elegant gowns and off-shoulder dresses. However, a new dilemma arises: how to accommodate her ears. Inspiration strikes and he decides to style her hair in a way that mimics the shape of ears. Once the process is complete, an unfamiliar embarrassment creeps in as he steps back to take in the result. Rosweiss, now dressed in a bunny girl outfit, looks surprisingly fitting in the attire. The realization causes an unexpected warmth to rise within him. The sudden activation of the dragon mark on Leon's body sends a sharp jolt through him, catching him off guard. Staring at the glowing pattern in disbelief, he recalls Rosweiss's previous explanation. If one of the two bearers of the dragon seal harbored such desires for the other, the mark would react. Realization sets in, and a deep blush spreads across his face as he struggles to suppress the turmoil within him. Frantically, he convinces himself that the revealing outfit must be to blame, seeking refuge in discipline by mentally reciting the 3 honors and 3 shames of a dragon slayer. As he repeats these lines, his mind finally clears, though a lingering unease remains. Despite calming himself, he hesitates as his gaze falls upon Rosweiss's current state. A rare opportunity presents itself, one that would be a shame to leave undocumented. A mischievous grin forms as he remembers the existence of her home camera. With newfound enthusiasm, he searches through her belongings until he locates it, then proceeds to capture images from various angles. Amused by the situation, he even adjusts her lips into a soft smile, ensuring that this moment is immortalized. Examining the results, he silently acknowledges the significance of these images and resolves to preserve them carefully. A small noise suddenly escapes from Rosweiss, sending a shock through him. His body stiffens as panic sets in, fearing she might wake up. Holding his breath, he watches for any further movement, but after several tense seconds she remains still. Relief washes over him, and he exhales deeply, realizing it was merely a false alarm. Deciding not to risk another close call, he swiftly changes her back into her usual pajamas and restores the room to its original state. With everything settled, he turns his focus toward the next phase of his plans, preparing to move forward with his objectives the following day. Meanwhile, at the Dragon Temple, Muen rushes toward Noah, her expression filled with urgency. Gasping for breath, she calls out in distress, prompting Noah to turn toward her with concern. Sensing the younger girl's panic, she gently urges her to calm down and explain. After taking a moment to steady herself, Muen reveals that her Rubik's Cube broke, and she had intended to ask their father to fix it, only to discover that he is nowhere to be found. A shadow crosses Noah's face as suspicion takes root. The possibility of his disappearance while their mother remains unconscious unsettles her. Determined to uncover the truth, she reassures Muen before taking her hand, vowing to help her search. Together they begin calling out for their father, their voices echoing as they check each room. With every empty space they pass, uncertainty grows. Frustration mounts as Muen even resorts to peering into a trash bin, an act that prompts Noah to mutter in disbelief, questioning the logic behind such a notion. Still, Muen insists that there is no sign of him anywhere, raising the unsettling possibility that he may have truly vanished. As they continue their search, Noah reflects on the lingering sense of detachment she has always felt about their family. On the surface, everything appears normal, yet beneath the facade, there are cracks that cannot be ignored. The man their mother always claimed was their father had been confined to that room for as long as she could remember. The first time he awoke, his instinct had been to flee, though their mother swiftly prevented his escape without explanation. From that moment on, he ceased his attempts to leave, yet Noah remained unconvinced of his willingness to stay. Over time, his behavior changed. He grew more involved, teaching her things, acting as though he genuinely wished to be part of their lives. Yet deep down, she questioned whether it was all an elaborate act, one carefully crafted to deceive. As she considers this, an uneasy certainty settles within her. Sooner or later, the kind ones always leave, just like before. She harbors doubts about whether his actions stem from genuine affection or if they are merely part of a larger scheme, a calculated effort to escape when the opportunity arises. For her, love tainted with ulterior motives holds no value, and she refuses to be a mere tool in someone else's plan. She remains convinced that he does not truly belong with them and that his eventual departure is inevitable. As her younger sister, tears welling in her eyes, cries out in distress over their unconscious mother and absent father, desperation takes hold. Seeking reassurance, she turns to her sister, who firmly vows to protect her. Embracing tightly, one sobs while the other remains resolute, declaring that a farewell ceremony must be held for the man who has abandoned them. Meanwhile, in the back hill of the Silver Dragon Temple, near the Plum Blossom Forest, Leon walks leisurely along a secluded path, reflecting on a conversation with a maid. She had once inquired if he wished to know where the queen often spent her time. After confirming his interest, she had offered to send a guide, though he declined in favor of a simple map. Now, as he takes in the tranquil surroundings, he acknowledges that his movements have been limited, and this brief moment of freedom is only possible due to the mother dragon's unconscious state. Using this opportunity, he explores the terrain, all the while masking his true intentions under the guise of mere curiosity. His true motive is revenge. The humiliation he suffered in front of his hometown lingers in his mind, and he intends to return the favor once she awakens. Spotting a massive tree, he assesses its size, considering it sufficient for his plans. Examining the ground, he muses that the soil could use a softer covering, perhaps flower petals, to create the perfect setting. As his gaze shifts toward the castle, he notes its vantage point, which provides a clear view of the Silver Dragon Temple below. With locations meticulously marked, Northern Cliff, Golden Grassland, Quiet Mountain Stream and Cherry Blossom Forest, he concludes that this spot too must be added to his list. Confident that his preparations are complete, he simply awaits her awakening, eager to see his plan unfold. Later that night, within the Silver Dragon Temple courtyard, Leon strolls through the dimly lit grounds, only to come upon a group of maids gathered around a roaring bonfire. Their weeping piques his curiosity, and as he approaches, he questions the cause of their grief. The maids, mourning, explain that the princesses requested a funeral, instructing them to prepare the ceremonial fire. At the heart of the gathering, the younger sister solemnly offers a meal, expressing hope that their father might return to them. Her elder sister, however, firmly counters, stating that he has already left and that they must move forward. Observing the scene unfold, Leon initially assumes it to be some sort of game, wondering if he should simply play along. Stepping forward, he signals for the maids to clear a path. Though hesitant at first, they comply upon recognizing his presence. With casual amusement, he inquires whose photo they are honoring, jesting about his grandfather's musical skills and offering to play a tune in their ceremony. However, as he gets a closer look, his amusement fades. Staring at the image before him, he is stunned to find his own photograph placed at the center of the ritual. At first, he remarks on how well he appears in the picture, but as realization sets in, his expression shifts drastically. A wave of shock overtakes him as he demands an explanation, struggling to grasp why he is the one being mourned. Upon hearing Leon's voice, Noah and Myun turned together, their eyes widening in shock. Standing before them, Leon appeared unharmed, leaving all three momentarily speechless. Myun, the first to react, pointed at him with a mix of confusion and disbelief, as if questioning whether he was real. Leon's gaze shifted between them, amusement flickering in his expression as he addressed the situation with curiosity. Myun carefully examined him, ensuring he was truly there. As realization set in, her eyes filled with tears, and she rushed into his arms, clinging to him as though he might vanish again. Overcome with emotion, she sobbed against his chest, her small frame trembling. The intensity of her reaction left Leon momentarily stunned, making him wonder what had happened in his absence. She confessed her fears, voicing her concern that he had abandoned her, her voice carrying both hurt and uncertainty. Leon's expression softened as he gently patted her head, offering reassurance. His words carried warmth, dispelling her worries. Meanwhile, Noah, standing nearby, appeared to come to a realization. Assuming Leon had left them, she had misjudged the situation, and guilt weighed on her. Unable to meet his gaze, she hesitantly explained that she and Myun had searched for him but found no trace, leading her to believe he had already left. Leon responded with a calm smile, explaining that he had simply gone for a walk in the back mountain. His words aimed to clear any misunderstanding and assure them of his presence. Noah, holding a small box from the table, gazed at it in silence as emotions surged through her. She silently acknowledged her mistake. Meanwhile, the dragon maids, stunned by Leon's reappearance, exchanged glances. Some remained speechless, while others pieced together what had happened, realizing the entire ordeal had been a misunderstanding. Without much explanation, Leon dismissed them, and they quickly exited the courtyard, now understanding their error. Myun, looking up at him, innocently asked if he could now eat the steak they had prepared in his honor. For a brief moment, Leon found himself at a loss for words. Though he had never been gone, her question made it seem as if he had been resurrected. With a helpless sigh, he agreed, prompting her sorrow to vanish instantly. Excited, she dashed to the table, grabbed the steak and began eating with enthusiasm. Watching her, Leon chuckled, remarking to himself how greedy she was, though denying any resemblance to himself. Noah, who had been silent, finally spoke, her tone flat but firm. She instructed him to inform them the next time he decided to leave alone. Leon blinked in confusion, still trying to grasp the full extent of what had happened. Noah, avoiding his gaze, lowered her head slightly, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. Though she framed her concern around Myun, Leon could tell she had been just as worried. Leon observed Noah struggle to express her feelings, recognizing the pride that restrained her. With a slight, uncertain movement, he acknowledged her silent concern. She lowered her head, deep in thought, before finally speaking with a serious tone. Without hesitation, she admitted her mistake and offered an unexpected apology. The sincerity in her gesture left Leon momentarily speechless. He stepped back slightly, taken aback by the formality of her words. She remained still, her gaze fixed downward as if waiting for his acceptance before lifting her head. His attention shifted to the small box in her grasp, and he silently reflected on the misunderstanding that had led to the situation. He understood Noah well enough to know that she was mature beyond her years, often shouldering responsibilities that were not hers to bear. Yet he also recognized that this incident stemmed from something deeper, his failure to provide her with a true sense of security. Despite her composed nature, she longed for stability and affection but hesitated to take the first step toward it. Words alone would not be enough to convince her. Resolving himself, Leon knew that proving his love through consistent actions was the only way to build her trust. With that thought, he crouched in front of her, placing a reassuring hand on her head. His calm voice conveyed understanding, gently urging her to join him for dinner and prepare for the following day. After a brief hesitation, she gave a slight nod, her grip on the box tightening as if unwilling to let go of the emotions tied to it. The next afternoon, sunlight streamed through the windows of Ross Weiss's room, casting a warm glow inside. Myun stood at the bedside, her small hands resting on the mattress as she watched her mother sleep. Ross Weiss remained still, her expression troubled, showing no immediate signs of waking. Concern clouded Myun's gaze as she cupped her face with both hands, silently willing her mother to stir. A faint twitch in Ross Weiss's hand signaled the first sign of movement. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the light as she took in her surroundings. Realization set in as she recognized the familiarity of her own bed. The moment Myun noticed the change, her excitement became palpable. She leaned forward, pressing against the mattress, her joy overflowing as she called out to her mother. Ross Weiss turned her head weakly, her gaze meeting Myun's. Seeing her mother awake after such a long time, emotion overwhelmed Myun, tears welling in her eyes as she expressed the depth of her worry. With a trembling hand, Ross Weiss reached up to gently wipe the tears away, her voice soft with regret as she reassured her daughter. Relief and happiness filled Myun's expression at her mother's return to consciousness. Despite the moment of warmth, Ross Weiss felt an unusual heaviness in her body. Attempting to move, she quickly realized her strength had waned. Her right hand, barely lifting, felt unresponsive. Confusion flickered in her eyes as she stared at her own trembling fingers, her mind racing to understand the change. A deep exhaustion weighed her down, and as she pressed a hand to her chest, an unsettling realization dawned on her. Something within her had weakened, and her magic no longer responded as it once had. Ross Weiss remained deep in thought, reflecting on her weakened state. Under normal circumstances, her dragon body would have withstood the backlash of the blood curse, but the toll of her recent actions had left her vulnerable. As she turned to Myun, the only one present in the room, a faint smile crossed her lips, grateful for her daughter's unwavering presence. Yet, suspicion lingered in her mind. If Leon had taken the opportunity to escape while she was unconscious, it would not have been surprising. Given his nature, he could already be far beyond reach. Confirming that she had been unconscious for 2 days, she quickly calculated the likelihood of his disappearance. If he had indeed fled, there was still time to send soldiers after him. Just as she was about to act, a familiar voice carried through the door. Leon entered, holding up a large fish with a triumphant expression, boasting about his catch. Myun's excitement was immediate as she ran to him, her admiration evident. Ross Weiss, taken aback, observed the scene in silence. The sight of him standing there, casually interacting with Myun, contradicted her initial assumptions. Leon finally noticed her gaze and turned, his expression shifting as their eyes met. There was a flicker of relief in his features, as if he had been waiting for her to wake. His relaxed demeanor and confident grin unsettled her, especially when he addressed her in a manner that made her tense. Lowering her gaze, she muttered in quiet protest, though her reaction did little to faze him. Still unfazed, Leon turned his attention to Myun, handing her the large fish and entrusting her with the task of taking it to the kitchen. The child eagerly accepted the responsibility, dragging the oversized catch behind her with determination. As she disappeared down the corridor, Leon watched her go before casually announcing that he and Ross Weiss had matters to discuss. As Myun disappeared around the corner, Leon turned his attention back to Ross Weiss and stepped into the room. She remained tense, avoiding his gaze, the weight of her earlier suspicions still lingering. Her voice, though quiet, carried firm resolve as she expressed her belief that he would have abandoned their daughters while she was unconscious. Leon regarded her with calm amusement, a smirk forming at the memory of what she had done to him. The thought of running away had never crossed his mind. There were still unresolved matters between them. Removing his gloves with deliberate ease, he spoke with measured confidence, his tone carrying an unmistakable edge. Ross Weiss hesitated at his words, uncertainty creeping into her expression. His demeanor had shifted, something both playful and dangerous lurking beneath the surface. As he closed the distance, his gaze locked onto hers with unsettling intensity. The question he posed made her pause, forcing her to search her memory until realization struck like a jolt. Before she could react, he was already too close. His shadow loomed over her, his presence overwhelming. The flickering light reflected in his eyes, and the smirk he wore sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. Recognition and suspicion flashed through her mind as he raised his hands, his expression darkening into something almost wicked, as if intent on returning the favor for what she had done to him a month ago. Ross Weiss, her fury evident, issued a sharp warning to Leon, making it clear that he should not assume he had any power over her simply because she was in a weakened state. She advised him against acting recklessly, her words carrying an undeniable edge. However, rather than being deterred, Leon met her with an amused smirk, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of confidence and mischief. A subtle smile played on his lips as he questioned whether he had truly been the weaker one in their past encounters. He continued, recalling the moment he had first regained consciousness, emphasizing that before he had even taken a sip of water, she had already cast the dragon pattern upon him and forced him down. A hint of sarcasm laced his voice as he pointed out that she had never given him a choice in the matter. Ross Weiss's expression darkened, her warning turning more severe as she urged him to consider what would happen once she fully recovered. The threat was unmistakable, a promise that he would regret his actions if he failed to stop now. She made sure there was no room for misinterpretation, ensuring he understood the consequences of his defiance. Yet, instead of retreating, Leon chose to provoke her further. Ignoring her warning entirely, he addressed her in a mocking tone, calling her his dear wife. Without hesitation, he lifted her into his arms, his grip firm and unyielding. With unwavering confidence, he declared that this was the best decision he had ever made, asserting that the roles had now been reversed. She was no longer the captor, she was the prisoner of war. The weight of his words struck a nerve, but Ross Weiss was in no position to challenge him. Later, in the secluded cherry blossom forest behind the hills, she continued her struggle against him, her frustration mounting as she pushed against his hold. She demanded her release, her anger growing with each passing second. However, Leon remained composed, offering only a calm warning that her struggles could cause her to fall. Grinding her teeth in frustration, she inwardly cursed the situation. If only she had regained her full strength, she would have overpowered him by now. Upon reaching the grand cherry blossom tree, Ross Weiss turned toward him with a piercing glare, demanding an explanation for why he had brought her there. Without hesitation, Leon revealed that while she had been unconscious, he had taken the time to investigate the places she frequently visited. He stated with certainty that this was always her first stop during the night. A frustrated groan escaped her lips, clear dissatisfaction evident in her reaction. She then pressed him further, demanding to know the meaning behind his words, asking if he planned to take her elsewhere as well. Rather than answering directly, Leon simply pointed toward a distant location. His voice carried a deeper weight as he identified the place as her temple, highlighting how, from this vantage point, she had a complete view of it. The significance in his tone made it clear that this was about far more than mere sightseeing. Ross Weiss immediately grew suspicious, her sharp mind catching on to the underlying intent. Without hesitation, she voiced her realization, asking if he sought revenge for his destroyed hometown. Activating his dragon pattern, Leon locked eyes with her and confirmed her suspicion. He asserted that vengeance was not a privilege reserved solely for her dragon clan. As he spoke, Ross Weiss suddenly felt an unsettling sensation deep within her body. Her dragon mark resonated unexpectedly, and an alarming weakness began to spread through her form. She struggled to maintain her composure as her energy drained rapidly, the sensation unlike anything she had experienced before. Meanwhile, Leon continued, his voice unwavering as he reminded her of the significance of the palace that stood before them. He urged her to take a good look at it, emphasizing that her pride, her dignity, everything she held dear, originated from that very place. And yet, despite all of that, she now found herself in a position where she was completely powerless, at his mercy. Without warning, he pushed her down, causing her balance to falter. As she fell, his mocking tone cut through the moment, taunting her as he questioned how it felt to be humiliated by a dragon slayer who had once been defeated. Leaning in closer, his movements deliberate, he traced his tongue against her back in a slow, taunting manner. The action sent a shudder through her, her breath hitching in both embarrassment and frustration. Instinctively, she tried to resist, but her body betrayed her, reacting involuntarily to his presence. A sudden thought crossed her mind, a last-minute attempt to shift the situation in her favor. Without hesitation, she coiled her tail around his arm, tightening her grip in an attempt to catch him off guard. Leon's expression flickered briefly with surprise, realization dawning that she still retained enough strength to fight back. Yet, rather than being troubled, amusement lingered in his gaze as he observed her defiance. Ross Weiss, her teeth clenched in anger, issued a final warning. Though he may have been in control now, she assured him that his moment of dominance would not last forever. Ross Weiss made it clear that when the opportunity arose, she would exact an even more brutal revenge on Leon. However, he merely laughed, dismissing her threat without concern. He warned her not to speak of the future, emphasizing that he lived only in the present. With a confident tone, he remarked that the night was far from over and that the carnival of revenge had only just begun. By the time morning arrived, the scene had shifted to the Silver Dragon Queen's bedroom. Leon carefully laid Ross Weiss down before settling beside her, exhaling deeply with a sense of relief. As he lay there, he reflected on the long night and the many places he had taken her, feeling the exhaustion from their countless movements. Watching her sleep so soundly, he noted how content she appeared, but the thought made him pause. His purpose had been revenge, yet seeing her peaceful expression made him question his emotions. Shaking off his hesitation, he reminded himself that she had endured the humiliation of being subdued by the very dragon slayer she loathed the most. With that, he reassured himself that his vengeance had been fulfilled. Knowing he had to leave before the palace maids awakened, he prepared to return to his own room. Their relationship was not one where they could simply remain together until dawn. Just as he was about to rise, Ross Weiss, still unconscious, instinctively reached out and held on to him. The unexpected gesture made him hesitate. He rationalized that when people slept, they naturally sought warmth, a basic instinct of all living beings. There was no reason to dwell on it. Yet, as he lay there, feeling the warmth of her hand in his, he found himself reconsidering. The thought of returning to the cold emptiness of his own bed no longer seemed appealing. A faint smile crossed his lips as he decided to stay a little longer. With the morning sun rising and birds chirping outside, Moan entered the room, eager to wake her mother. She called out, wondering why Ross Weiss was still asleep, then jumped toward her in an attempt to rouse her. Growing impatient, she pointed out that the sun had already risen. Ross Weiss, still drowsy and half asleep, brushed her off, suggesting that Moan go play with her father instead. Without hesitation, Moan turned to Leon, shaking him as well, insisting that the sun was shining on his back. Still lost in slumber, he murmured sleepily about how warm it felt and mumbled about resting a little longer. Observing both of them, Moan frowned in frustration. They were hugging so tightly that she had no idea who to play with. As she thought about it, she realized that this was the first time she had seen her parents being so affectionate. However, something seemed off. Her curious eyes scanned their bodies, and she suddenly noticed strange red spots scattered across them. A realization struck her: bug bites. Determined to help, she rushed to the desk and searched through the drawers, recalling how her mother had once taught her about different types of bites. She confidently reassured herself that if someone had been bitten, there was always an ointment to treat it. Feeling triumphant, she saw no reason to worry. Since her sister was not around, she proudly took it upon herself to care for them. With cheerful enthusiasm, she applied the ointment generously to both Ross Weiss and her father, making sure to cover every red mark. Sometime later, Ross Weiss stirred, calling out to wake Leon. As he finally opened his eyes, a strange sensation spread across his face. The moment he fully regained his senses, he noticed that his entire body was covered in unfamiliar markings. Blinking in confusion, he turned to look at Ross Weiss, and upon seeing the same markings on her face, he immediately burst into laughter. Ross Weiss, puzzled by his reaction, demanded an explanation. Before he could respond, Muon excitedly announced her involvement, proudly admitting that she had taken care of them. She explained that after noticing the numerous red spots on both of them, she had assumed they had been bitten by insects, prompting her to apply the necessary medicine. Ross Weiss and Leon exchanged silent glances, a mix of disbelief and embarrassment settling over them. Leon sighed, concluding that some things were simply better left unknown. However, Muon remained cheerful, beaming with pride over her efforts. Amused, Leon played along, praising her work and assuring her that she had done well. Muon, feeling emboldened by her success, confidently declared that she would assist with the medicine again in the future. At that moment, Ross Weiss and her husband exchanged a knowing glance, silently agreeing that they would ensure the door remained locked next time. Sometime later, as Ross Weiss rested, Leon attempted to feed her. Startled by his sudden action, she instinctively pulled away, questioning his intentions. However, he ignored her protests and pressed the spoon to her lips, insisting that since she had gone without food for days, she needed to regain her strength. He reminded her that dragons could survive without nourishment during their dormant state, but now that she was awake, hunger was inevitable. Though reluctant, Ross Weiss argued that she was perfectly capable of feeding herself. However, as she tasted the food, a hint of hesitation appeared on her face. It was surprisingly good. Leon, observing her reaction, smiled and took a bite for himself, proudly announcing that the dish had been prepared with care. Ross Weiss, confused, pointed out that the meal had been made for her alone and questioned why he was eating it as well. In response, he casually reached for the bowl, claiming that he was merely helping, doubting that she would be able to finish it on her own. His remark ignited immediate irritation in Ross Weiss, who swiftly challenged his assumption. With renewed determination, she declared that she would consume every last bite, leaving none for him. After finishing the entire portion, Leon reflected on recent events. He had been tending to her needs, assisting her with bathing, preparing meals, and even feeding her directly. Though Ross Weiss acknowledged his actions, a sense of inner turmoil lingered. With sharp sarcasm, she questioned whether his efforts were truly acts of kindness or merely another way to torment her. Feigning innocence, Leon responded with playful amusement, denying any malicious intent. Instead, he described his actions as nothing more than the affectionate care of a devoted husband. His words only served to further aggravate her. As he exited the room, his laughter echoed through the hallway, accompanied by a casual remark reminding her to meet him in the morning. Ross Weiss, her patience wearing thin, clenched her fists in frustration, muttering curses under her breath. True to his nature, he lived up to his reputation as an infuriating dragon slayer, always finding new ways to get under her skin. In a burst of irritation, she slammed her fist beside the bed with full force. The moment her hand made contact with the surface, an unexpected surge of energy coursed through her body. A jolt of realization struck her as she surveyed her surroundings, sensing something had changed. It was undeniable, her strength had returned. Meanwhile in the kitchen, Leon hummed a tune to himself, utterly at ease. A self-satisfied grin played on his lips as he relished the thought that Mother Dragon had yet to make a full recovery. Amused, he entertained the idea of prolonging his enjoyment for a few more days. However, blissfully unaware of the impending turn of events, he remained completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation about to unfold. With nightfall, the Silver Dragon Castle was illuminated by the curved moon, and several rooms remained lit. At one point, Anna knocked on Ross Weiss's door, addressing her respectfully before entering. She carried a tray with a bowl of steaming medicinal soup prescribed by the doctor to aid in Ross Weiss's recovery. Ross Weiss, who was seated on the bed engrossed in a book, lifted her gaze upon hearing Anna. Calmly, she declared that her body had already recovered and dismissed the need for the medicine. Without further protest, Anna placed the bowl on a nearby cabinet. While preparing to leave, Anna noticed a noticeable hole with large cracks on the wall near Ross Weiss's bed. Puzzled, she questioned Ross Weiss about it. Ross Weiss glanced at the damaged wall, recalling how she had accidentally unleashed her strength earlier in a moment of frustration. Leon had uttered some disparaging words, provoking her to punch the wall. Embarrassed, she awkwardly admitted her loss of control and instructed Anna to arrange for repairs the following day. Anna acknowledged the command without question. Just as Anna was about to leave, Ross Weiss called her back. Lowering her voice, Ross Weiss requested that Anna keep her recovery a secret from Leon. She expressed a desire for Leon to continue caring for her for a few more days. Her face flushed slightly, and she averted her gaze, using the book in her hands to partially cover her expression. Anna, surprised by this unexpected display of shyness, concluded that Ross Weiss must have grown fond of Leon's attentive care and wished to prolong the experience. The sight of the proud queen acting like a bashful girl amused Anna, and she stifled a soft chuckle before agreeing to Ross Weiss's request. However, as Anna left the room, Ross Weiss's expression shifted dramatically. The shy demeanor vanished, replaced by a sinister smirk. Contrary to her claim, she had no intention of basking in Leon's care. Clutching her book tightly, she silently plotted her revenge. Leon, unaware of her recovery, remained oblivious to the approaching trouble. 2 days later, Leon was still unaware of Ross Weiss's condition. Under the bright daylight, the castle courtyard was bathed in sunshine, casting a vibrant glow over the flowers and plants. Leon spent the time playing with Muin, who joyfully sought his attention. Eager to learn more magic, Muin excitedly mimicked the gestures and movements she had seen, pleading with Leon to teach her a spell that made her body shine. Leon, amused, pondered her request before lowering his head to clarify her curiosity about magic. Muin's movements resembled those of Leon and Ross Weiss during their training sessions. She expressed her desire to learn the same kind of magic she had seen them use. Leon, surprised by her sudden interest, questioned her motives. Muin, feeling a bit shy, lowered her head and nervously fidgeted with her fingers. She admitted that Noah, her older sister, had already learned many things at school, and she didn't want to fall behind. Noah had applied her school knowledge to analyze their parents' fights the last time she visited home. Muin admired her sister's intelligence and wanted to catch up. Understanding his daughter's desire, Leon crouched slightly to meet her gaze. He acknowledged her wish to learn and resolved to teach her magic so she wouldn't feel left behind. Determined, he confidently reassured Muin, placing his fist on his chest in a strong gesture of promise. With Muin's enthusiastic agreement, Leon began her magical training. He instructed her on the basics, encouraging her to guide the magic from within her body. Myun followed his guidance, closing her eyes tightly in concentration. Her small figure trembled slightly as she exerted effort. Slowly, a faint magical current surrounded her feet and body, causing her hair to lift gently with its flow. Leon observed with astonishment at the rapid progress. In mere hours, Myun had successfully initiated the guidance of her inner magic. He speculated that with her current pace, she might soon achieve magical enlightenment and awaken her original magic. The thought struck him, could Myun be a magical prodigy? Amidst her focused practice, a loud rumble from Myun's stomach interrupted the moment. She opened her eyes and gazed up at Leon with an expression of innocent hunger, lamenting her lack of energy. The magical exertion had clearly taken a toll on her small body, leaving her hungry. Leon, caught off guard by the sudden shift from mystical progress to mundane needs, couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. Myun, still a young child, lacked the advanced learning abilities that her sister Noah possessed, so her progress in magic guidance would naturally take time. Leon smiled gently, scratching the back of his head as he reminded himself not to rush the process. Accepting this, he took Myun's hand and led her toward the castle, deciding it was best to stop the training for the day and ensure she filled her empty stomach. His expression softened as he assured Myun that their practice session was over for now and it was time to eat. Holding her father's hand, Myun skipped happily, her joy evident in every step. The sunlight bathed them in a warm glow, making the father and daughter's silhouette appear particularly heartwarming as they moved further away from the training grounds. As night fell, Anna approached Rosweiss's room, knocking softly before entering. She carried a tray, covered by a crimson cloth, which concealed its contents. Bringing it forward, she respectfully presented it to Rosweiss, confirming that it was the item she had requested. Rosweiss, sitting gracefully on her bed with her hands crossed before her chest, acknowledged Anna with a nod and instructed her to place the tray nearby. Before Anna could leave, another knock echoed through the room, followed by Leon's cheerful entrance. He greeted Rosweiss with a bright smile, his casual and confident demeanor filling the space. Despite his enthusiasm, Rosweiss remained composed and unbothered by his sudden appearance. She calmly thanked Anna for her service and dismissed her. Bowing slightly in response, Anna left with a pleased expression, feeling delighted at the thought of Rosweiss spending time with Leon. Leon, still grinning, placed his hands behind his head as he sauntered into the room. He had been informed by Anna that Rosweiss would need 5 more days to recover fully. With that in mind, he gleefully entertained thoughts of teasing and tormenting her during her recovery, completely unaware that she had already regained her strength. Standing before her, Leon maintained a concerned expression, offering to give her a massage, believing she was still frail. However, Rosweiss, feeling far from weak, gazed directly into his eyes. Her calm and unwavering demeanor caught him off guard. She then provoked him, questioning his strength as the Empire's most formidable dragon slayer, implying that only 2 days had passed and he was already faltering. Her taunt struck a nerve. The corners of Leon's smile twitched and irritation flickered across his face. His laughter vanished as frustration set in. Determined to respond, he approached her, swiftly pulling away the blanket that had covered her. Though he had initially intended to restrain himself that evening, her words stirred something within him. Rosweiss's expression shifted, her brows furrowing as a flicker of fear crossed her face. She instinctively raised her hands, preparing to defend herself if necessary. Leon's grin twisted into something wicked as he leaned closer, his fingers trailing along her face in a mockingly gentle manner. He relished the thought of making her regret her words, his eyes gleaming with intent. Feigning confidence, he remarked that since her words were so sharp, surely her body would prove just as resilient. Rosweiss's body trembled slightly, her wide eyes locked onto Leon's unsettling gaze. Despite the fear she projected, something shifted within her. Leon, still oblivious to the real shift in the dynamic, began undressing, prepared to continue what he saw as a justified punishment. However, in that instant, Rosweiss's expression darkened. The fear faded from her face, replaced by a sinister, unwavering smile. Her eyes gleamed with certainty as she declared, without hesitation, that she had never once regretted her actions. The sudden reversal left the atmosphere thick with tension, the power dynamic between them no longer as one-sided as Leon had assumed. Rosweiss swiftly wrapped her tail around Leon's body, holding him firmly. Before Leon could fully grasp what was happening, he found himself ensnared by her tail. Looking down in bewilderment, he tried to understand the sudden turn of events. Moments later, he felt his feet leave the ground, his face registering shock as Rosweiss forcefully swung him. With a powerful motion, she flung him onto her bed, causing him to crash onto the soft surface, his back striking the pillow. Just as Leon attempted to rise, Rosweiss quickly climbed onto the bed. She pressed him down with her hand, pinning him beneath her as she seated herself directly on top of him. Gazing down at him, she embodied the commanding presence of a queen. As Leon remained immobilized, realization dawned upon him. Her strength was no longer the same as before. She had undeniably regained her full power. Panic surged through Leon as he questioned her sudden recovery. The weakness and frailty she had displayed in recent days had all been a facade. Her true intention was clear now, retribution for the torment she had endured. Rosweiss silenced him with a simple gesture, placing her finger to her lips, asserting her authority. Then, with a deliberate motion, she unveiled the tray that Anna had delivered earlier. Beneath the red cloth, the contents were revealed: 2 pairs of handcuffs, a whip, and a crystal ball. Leon stared in disbelief at the array of objects. Questions filled his mind, wondering when she had managed to prepare these items. He barely had time to think before Rosweiss fastened the handcuffs around his wrists and ankles, ensuring he could not escape. A black cloth followed, covering his eyes and heightening his apprehension. Stripped of his remaining clothes, Leon struggled against the restraints, but his attempts were in vain. Rosweiss observed his futile resistance with satisfaction, a mischievous grin curving her lips. She mocked his efforts, savoring the sight of the once feared dragon slayer now at her mercy. Blindfolded and bound, Leon's anxiety grew. He could no longer predict what Rosweiss intended, only knowing that her vengeance was imminent. Rosweiss decided to retaliate against Leon by making him relive a moment of vulnerability. She displayed a video from a previous encounter, forcing him to confront the words he had spoken to her. Bound by handcuffs on both his hands and feet, Leon lay on the bed, unable to move freely. His eyes were covered with a pair of stockings, further limiting his senses. Despite his growing nervousness, Leon tried to maintain his composure, declaring that he had undergone professional anti-interrogation training and would not submit to her. Rosweiss, however, found his defiance amusing. With a mischievous smile, she reached for the crystal ball resting on the tray. As she touched it, the orb emitted a soft blue light that gradually formed into a screen. The scene that appeared was a memory from the past, showing Leon under the influence of Rosweiss' improved blood curse. He could be heard pleading with her, expressing desires he now found deeply embarrassing. Upon recognizing his own voice, Leon's initial reaction was one of panic. Though he could not see the screen, the unmistakable sound of his words made his face flush with embarrassment. He stammered, struggling to deny the obvious. Rosweiss, delighting in his discomfort, continued to mock him. Her laughter was laced with satisfaction as she pointed out the undeniable evidence playing before him. She then lifted the crystal ball closer to Leon, untying the stockings from his eyes. As his vision cleared, the reality of the situation hit him. The image on the screen vividly displayed his past self, begging for her affection. His voice echoed once more, reiterating words of devotion that now tormented him. The overwhelming humiliation caused him to tremble, his body reacting as if a wave of electricity had surged through him. Leon, overwhelmed and unable to withstand the shame, finally surrendered. His resolve crumbled and he slumped onto the bed, his head lowered in utter defeat. Clasping his hands together, he pleaded with Rosweiss to stop the playback, desperately hoping to put an end to the unbearable display. Despite his pleas, Rosweiss stood confidently, savoring the satisfaction of her well-executed revenge, the crystal ball still glowing in her hand. Rosweiss gazed down at Leon, visibly pleased with how swiftly he had surrendered. Her expression carried a triumphant smile as she relished the sight of his humiliated state. Without hesitation, she picked up the whip resting on the tray and addressed Leon, instructing him to repeat what he had just said multiple times. Holding the whip firmly in one hand, she delicately pinched its tip with the other, savoring the anticipation of her revenge. The punishment was a direct retaliation for the torment Leon had inflicted upon her days earlier. Determined to make him comply, Rosweiss lifted his chin using the handle of the whip, forcing him to meet her gaze. With undeniable evidence in her possession, Leon's face displayed a troubled expression. He dared not resist or offer any justifications. Words failed him, and under Rosweiss' unwavering gaze, he resigned himself to her commands. The warm glow of the desk lamp cast elongated shadows of the two figures against the cabinet. The flickering light only heightened the tension in the room. Rosweiss's movements were deliberate as she swung the whip, each lash leaving a stinging mark on Leon's body. Kneeling on the bed, Leon gritted his teeth, attempting to endure the pain. Despite his efforts, every strike forced involuntary tremors through his body. The punishment continued as Rosweiss gradually drew closer, savoring every moment of his torment. The overlapping silhouettes on the wall bore silent witness to the scene, with the lamp's soft light illuminating the intimate struggle. The night stretched on, and the heavy atmosphere seemed to weigh upon the room. Eventually, the pale light of the moon seeped through the window, illuminating the evidence of Rosweiss's wrath. The marks from the whip remained visible across Leon's skin, serving as a painful reminder of the night's events. He lay sprawled on the bed, physically and emotionally drained. Silent tears welled up in his eyes, falling as he mourned his humiliation. Suddenly, the flapping of wings disturbed the stillness. A red messenger dragon flew through the open window, delivering a letter with urgency. Alerted by the commotion, Rosweiss swiftly left the bed and approached the window. The dragon, small yet efficient, perched on the sill as she retrieved the message. As she read its contents, her face shifted, her usual composed demeanor replaced by a hint of concern. Leon, though exhausted, noticed the dragon's arrival and Rosweiss's sudden change in expression. The unexpected message at such a late hour could only mean something serious had occurred. His weary eyes followed her every movement, anxiety building as he anticipated the news. Rosweiss, her expression firm, finally broke the tense silence. The academy had summoned them, informing them that Noah had been involved in a fight. The shock struck Leon immediately. Jolting upright, his fatigued body protested, but his disbelief overpowered the pain. His wide eyes fixated on Rosweiss, struggling to process the unexpected news. The room, once filled with the remnants of Rosweiss's punishment, now bristled with the tension of the unknown. As the night transitioned into dawn, the vibrant hues of orange and red painted the sky. The serene morning offered no comfort, as the unsettling revelation from the academy lingered. The messenger dragon had already departed, leaving the troubling letter in its wake. The scene unfolded in Vice Principal Wilson's office, where the large floor-to-ceiling windows welcomed the bright morning sunlight, casting a golden glow across the room. The warmth of the sun illuminated every corner, enhancing the atmosphere of the spacious office. Noah stood tall and composed in her pristine school uniform, her expression calm and unwavering. Despite the accusations against her, she showed no signs of injury or distress. Her straight posture and serene demeanor contrasted sharply with the three boys beside her, who bore visible evidence of a recent fight. The red-haired boy in the middle had a swollen face and a right arm supported by a sling. His dirty uniform further attested to the scuffle. Flanking him, the two brown-haired boys displayed similar bruises and disheveled appearances, their faces marked with the remnants of the altercation. Leon and Rosweiss were seated on the sofa, their attention fixed on Vice Principal Wilson. Both maintained a respectful demeanor as they awaited his explanation. However, Rosweiss's patience quickly waned. Her fierce gaze locked onto the three injured boys, and her arms crossed defensively. She could no longer suppress her anger, assuming the worst about the situation. With a stern expression, she confronted the vice principal, her tone sharp and accusatory. Her piercing stare struck fear into the young dragons, whose guilty expressions intensified. They trembled under her intimidating presence, visibly frightened. Meanwhile, Leon shifted his focus to Noah, circling around her with a look of concern. He carefully examined her from head to toe, searching for any sign of harm. His worried eyes softened slightly when Noah reassured him that she was unharmed. Her calm response only heightened the tension in the room. Vice Principal Wilson, displaying little tolerance for further speculation, delivered the unexpected truth. It was Noah who had overpowered the three boys. The revelation startled Rosweiss. Her stern composure momentarily cracked, and a hint of embarrassment surfaced on her face. The anger that had burned so fiercely within her vanished in an instant. The three young dragons, unable to contain their distress, huddled together in tearful frustration. The humiliation of being defeated by a girl weighed heavily on them. Despite their sobs, Noah remained unbothered, her proud demeanor unwavering. Leon, too, reacted with surprise before his expression shifted into one of pride. His lips curled into a slight grin, and he discreetly raised a thumbs up toward Noah, silently applauding her strength. Memories of their past conversations flashed through Leon's mind. He recalled encouraging Noah to stand her ground, and now, witnessing her resilience brought him immense satisfaction. Noah, sensing his approval, closed her eyes in quiet triumph. The shared pride between father and daughter lingered in the air. Vice Principal Wilson, adjusting his glasses, maintained a neutral expression. He acknowledged that while the incident was ultimately a minor brawl, it reflected a deeper issue rooted in the long-standing divide between cocoon-born and viviparous young dragons. He explained the fundamental differences between the two groups. Cocoon-born dragons, emerging from eggs, typically developed greater physical prowess at a young age. In contrast, viviparous dragons, born live, inherited their strength directly from their mothers, though they required time and training to reach their full potential. This biological disparity often created an imbalance in physical capability during their formative years. However, Noah's victory defied those expectations, demonstrating strength beyond what was typically anticipated from a viviparous young dragon. The vice principal's gaze settled on Noah, his expression a mix of curiosity and contemplation as he prepared to address the situation further. Vice Principal Wilson observed Noah with a hint of approval. Despite being a viviparous young dragon, she had managed to defeat 3 oviparous-born young dragons, all older than herself. Her exceptional strength and determination at such a young age made him optimistic about her future. Suddenly, the office door swung open with a loud thud. An adult red-haired dragon, well-dressed and imposing, entered the room, flanked by 2 other adult dragons. Their stern expressions suggested their connection to the 3 injured young dragons. The red-haired dragon, clearly the father of one of the boys, walked confidently toward his son with his hands in his pockets, brushing off the incident with a dismissive tone. However, upon seeing his son's injuries, his casual demeanor quickly shifted to shock. The sight of the swollen face and bandaged arm left him momentarily speechless. The 2 other fathers mirrored his reaction, their eyes filled with disbelief as they took in the bruised appearances of their sons. Overwhelmed, the young dragons ran to their fathers, tears welling up as they clung to them, their sense of injustice spilling out in muffled sobs. Meanwhile, Rosweiss, seated calmly on the sofa, immediately recognized the red-haired dragon's lineage. She whispered to Leon, identifying the man as a member of the Crimson Flame Dragon King Constantine's clan. Known for their arrogance and aggressive tendencies, the Crimson Flame Dragons were notoriously difficult to deal with. Despite Rosweiss' caution, Leon remained unfazed. He smirked confidently, recalling how many of the Crimson Flame Dragons he had defeated in battle. To him, their presence held no intimidation. After consoling his son, the red-haired dragon turned his attention to Rosweiss, his face twisted with disdain. With an arrogant tone, he criticized her for failing to discipline her daughter, accusing Noah of bullying his son. The boy with red hair peeked from behind his father, fear still evident in his eyes as he glanced nervously at Rosweiss. The man continued his taunts, belittling the Silver Dragon clan's strength in comparison to the Crimson Flame Dragons. His condescending words implied that the Silver Dragons were weak and relied on their children to assert dominance. Rosweiss, visibly angered by the provocation, straightened in her seat, her glare sharp and unwavering. Leon, sensing the escalation, stepped protectively in front of Rosweiss. The red-haired dragon's smug expression did not waver as he issued a challenge, demanding an apology for his son. He warned that without one, Noah and her parents would not be allowed to leave the room. Leon responded without hesitation, his voice dripping with defiance. The mere thought of a fight seemed to invigorate him, his clenched fists betraying his readiness to confront the arrogant dragon. Vice Principal Wilson, unwilling to let the situation spiral further, slammed his hand on the table with a resounding thud. The commanding sound immediately silenced the room. All eyes turned to him as he sternly demanded order. Clearing his throat, Vice Principal Wilson addressed the parents, insisting they remain calm while he explained the incident. He proceeded to recount the events of the previous evening. During dinner at the cafeteria, Lar, the red-haired boy, had gotten into a dispute with Noah. In the commotion, Noah's plate had fallen, staining Lar's clothes. Enraged, Lar expressed his frustration, and though no further altercation occurred at that moment, the situation did not end there. Later that night, on the way back to the dormitory, Lar and his 2 companions ambushed Noah in the backyard. A fierce fight ensued, resulting in the injuries that now marked the 3 young dragons. When Vice Principal Wilson asked if there were any additional details the boys wished to share, the 3 young dragons cowered, quickly shaking their heads. Fear was evident in their expressions as they avoided eye contact, unwilling to offer any further explanation. However, just as the room settled into tense silence, Noah calmly raised her hand. Her composed demeanor suggested she had something important to add. With unwavering confidence, she addressed Vice Principal Wilson, making it clear that her side of the story was not yet fully told.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And for more content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see another part. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time. Bye-bye.